Okay, we are live.
Okay.
That's my like pre-show intro. Is to say okay instead of yes, which is for the main show.
The fantasy headline of the day has already made it into the YouTube chat, which is and so have you, Elon, about the Ekblad injury.
Yeah, no, I mean it's terrible. Like it sounds like he was like really hurt. I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll like try to guess some fantasy implications, but obviously that just sucks for him.
When someone tells me like he was screaming in pain, it just makes me like
sad.
Yeah, like I feel like
what do you I think that means you're human.
I just feel like that's like I think it's TMI. Like I appreciate the info for sure, and like it does help give a sense of the impression, and like for sure, feel free to share K-Townie. I don't hold it against you, but for me, it's just like like poor guy. I don't need to know that.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but what you gonna do?
Sad. Oh, you have one hair compliment. Elon's going for straight-haired Richard Simmons tonight.
I just don't want my hair to get into like my face, and I don't want to be looking at the camera the whole time being like, oh, I look so stupid with my stupid hair. So at least now it's like out, it's up and away.
And Adam M adds that after I said what I said, Yandel looked like he was in tears. It was terrible. I mean, I feel it. Like we all.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll talk about it on the show, anyways.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's Brian start the recording if you're ready.
Am I like on a tilt on this camera?
Yeah, you just let me know what's going on with that.
How's your matchup? You were considering retiring from fantasy hockey earlier this afternoon.
You could ask me that also on the show. Okay, 1 sec. Actually, now that you're doing that, if you could just kill time for 1 second, I'm just gonna check one thing before I start. Okay, think about it.
Why is this? What happened?
Oh, that's not what I meant. Not to be like, why is this happening? I mean, something entertaining.
Oh, sorry. All right,
forget it. I already did check the thing I wanted to check.
Okay, well there you go. I entertained. Just
no,
poorly.
You didn't.
Poorly.
What? What is happening with this thing?
Oh, what engine? What's your shirt?
Oh my god!
It's engineer. It's like the Stranger Things font.
Yeah, Engine Yard. It's a tech thing. It's not interesting. I got it at a conference.
Secret society. Oh
wow. No, it's like a product. It's just a product that was handing out free shirts at a conference.
Free advertising.
No, because it's not on unless I'm doing jokes making fun of your like messing with the camera. See, it's below the frame.
Well, now we've mentioned it.
Well, only on the YouTube video. But let's invoice them now.
Okay.
Right, let's do this. Oh my god.
You're ready?
What a day. Yeah. Ready to knock this out. You know what? I'm like not even so much in the mood, except the people in the chat are like, bringing me life, that it's like, okay, we're gonna have some fun. All right. So yeah, let's start the recording. 3, 2, 1.
Oh wait.
No, okay.
Okay, here we go. Now I'm ready.
Oh wait, I just realized I have one other thing I need to do.
Oh, phew.
Because I have to do the audio setting thing to not automatic. Oh, now it's not checked. Ugh, it just decides every time Zoom decides whether or not it's going to check that feature or not.
While you're doing that.
No, I'm done.
Oh.
But what did you want to do?
I was going to say that you're feuding with the Nashville Predators social media team right now.
We could say that for the show also.
Okay.
We'll say it. Say everything you want to say. I hope you remember everything you want to talk about.
I'm talking about it now.
Well, let's just start. Okay, 3. No more words.
I have a chance to talk about Shane Gostisbehere on the episode, and then you never gave me that chance.
You can feel free to take a chance. Like, you don't need my permission. All right, let's start. No more words.
You said you
were
say
it on the show.
I'm gonna okay. Well, we haven't started recording.
I know. Let's start. And then you can complain about that on the show also.
Okay.
It's all gold. Actually, no, people don't like when we complain and argue. All right, so what is the complaint? I said that I would bring up Shane Gostisbehere and then I forgot.
Yeah, do you have your line ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so ready to start recording?
I've been ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, record.
Oh, phew, recording. I changed windows. And I frantically had to come back.
But you're good?
I'm good.
You don't worry about me. Like if it would have gone wrong and we would have needed to go again, it would have been totally fine with me.
Well, I'm glad that would have been fine with you, but it was unnecessary.
Okay. So let's start the show.
All right.
You're gonna ask about. I already forget. Oh, the Preds. Okay, yeah, I'd love to talk about the Preds. All right. Yeah. Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Carlson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest-running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by one guy who just dropped Eric Carlson in the cacophony, another guy who gave him permission to do so. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky. Oh, I forgot my name. I am your host, Elon. To do so. No,
you nailed it.
In the world, permission to do so. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky. With me, as always, the fantasy hockey robot, the IPP MVP, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's down to brass tacks. Week 10 of your fantasy season has likely ended by the time you've heard this. The couple playoffs start week 13, so we're just 2 weeks away from the playoffs. And Elon, I feel like the stress is starting to get to you. You mentioned to me, like in a DM earlier today, that retirement was a possibility considering how stressed and frustrated you are with the way your matchup is going this week. And I think it's spilling out onto our Twitter account where you are now officially beefing with the Nashville Predators social media team. What is going on?
Okay, first of all, I didn't exactly say I was planning to retire from fantasy hockey. I was just saying that it's like days like this when basically I was up ahead of Ben from short shifts by like 60 points a couple of days ago. Now I'm up by like 10 and like I have a stat correction of -3, of course. Like he's just like all my players decided to take the whole weekend off. All of his players are going insane and Ben's obviously knows what he's doing and added the right people, and all the credit to Ben. I really hope I'm going to hold on. And it was very stressful. So I was thinking, man, I need a new hobby. Like I need something to get my mind off of this. But then separately, but also kind of related, I don't like the Preds Twitter account. I think now it's my least favorite Twitter account currently of all the NHL teams. Like, first of all, they randomly at 6 p.m., they just tweet, the Preds have recalled goaltender Casimir Kaskisuo. I don't know who this person is. Sorry for mispronouncing. The Preds have recalled goaltender Casimir Kaskisuo from the taxi squad under emergency conditions and assigned defenseman David Ferentz to the taxi squad. Okay. So first of all, like, what are these emergency conditions? Like, why did you do that? Like, are you going to share? Then it was like minutes and minutes are going by. And it's like, well, what's the emergency? Like, I think people who are, first of all, fans of your team might want to know if like one of your goalies is injured. Like people playing fantasy like myself who have UC Saros. It's like, it'd be nice to know what the emergency is. So anyways, then someone responds to that tweet being like, who's playing tonight? This is not like a, like a fantasy person. It's probably a fan of the Preds, right? It's like, who's playing tonight? They respond, a goalie. Give me a break. Why are you being rude? Why are you trolling your fans? You're muted.
I can just keep going then. That's fine.
No.
Okay, I'll give my reaction. Oh, come on. Like, I get like not wanting to share the emergency circumstances. Okay, I'll have some sensitivity to that. Maybe they weren't authorized. But when someone says who's starting, a goalie, you're showing contempt for your followers. You're showing contempt
to your followers. Yeah. So then I just like tweeted, like, what's the emergency? Like retweeted. And then when I saw this, a goalie, I just like retweeted that also and said, I don't like this account. And then what did they respond? Some lame, they're not even funny, right? They wrote, figure it out, bud. Excuse me? Figure what out?
what's to figure out? Well, you just said that you did say that they might be your least favorite Twitter account. And I don't understand what figure it, like, yeah, I agree. What are you figuring it out? And why are they calling you bud? So condescending.
All right. So that's the start of our show here. We're coming in hot. We've got a lot to get to today. We've got a really fun show plan. Brian and I have each come up with 10 players who we expect their Yahoo percentage roster to go up between now and the rest of the season. And then 10 players who we expect it to go down. So we've got a lot of players to get to, I guess 20 each. We don't even know who we each have on each other's lists. Maybe there'll be some overlap. I'm really excited to hear who you have, Brian, to hear your responses to mine. But okay, before we get to that, let's, of course, mention that we're presented by DobberHockey.com, the #1 fantasy hockey website in the whole freaking world. It's great. They're giving you updates every single day. I love the articles. Like the daily ramblings are a must read every day to keep up to speed. And then, of course, Frozen Tools. Chef's Kiss gives you all the tools you need to prep for fantasy, including like in-game live line combinations, which I use all the time, including like during episode recordings and everything on their site I use to prep the show. So I love Frozen Tools. I love Dobber Hockey. Check it out, DobberHockey.com. And then, Brian, I guess before we get to our lists, our top 10 lists, I guess we should mention the big news that just came out like as we were prepping to start recording. Aaron Ekblad has had a really serious injury. He got tangled up with Essa Lindell. Looks like he has a really bad leg injury. This is like brand new news, so I guess we don't really have much to say about it, but I just wanted to bring it up. And like, it looks like this guy is out for the season. So obviously all the best for Ekblad. I hope he's okay. Apparently he was in a lot of pain. And then I guess it's our job though to discuss if there's any fantasy impact here, right?
Yeah, and first off, we don't know the extent of the injury. It literally happened within the last 60 minutes or so, and we know it looked bad, stretch it off the ice. Don't know he's out for the season, but it does look serious and is being treated very seriously. So I think it's safe to assume for now, but go and check the latest info by the time you're hearing this. And it's definitely really sad for Ekblad, who was just having himself a really fantastic season.
Norris contender, I think people were saying.
Yeah, had earned Joel Quenneville's trust, which is not an easy thing to do. He's basically getting the Duncan Keith treatment, just being played in all kinds of situations, 25 to 30 minutes a night, and putting up a ton of shots, getting top power play billing, just everything was going right. And interestingly, we haven't talked about Ekblad a whole lot, just other than at the start of the season where it's like, you need Ekblad. Ekblad needs to be on everyone's roster. But his peripherals, his hits and blocks have really not been as big a part of his game this season or last season. Like since Quenneville came along, he was never a big hitter or blocker, but averaging less than one hit and less than one block per game, but has replaced those with shots on goal. Anyway, having a really, really fantastic season, and it's a shame that it might have been cut short, which will have an impact on the rest of the lineup. One player who I'm going to talk about later in the show is somebody who might be, I had him down as someone who is rostered, whose percent rostered is going to dip the rest of the year, but now I'm not so sure. And another impact that this is going to have is going to be on that Florida goaltending, right? Ekblad's just been a huge, reliable, steady hand, just eating up tons of minutes. And so if I have Bobrovsky on my roster and I've been appreciating what he's been able to offer me lately, I might just be like, I'm a little more worried today about him than I was before Ekblad was injured.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Brian, why don't you just go ahead and say the player? We could give one away now. Who's the player you were thinking that this guy was going to go down in Yahoo percent owned between now and the end of the year, thinking he was like rostered in too many leagues. Now you might have changed your mind. I'd be curious to know who it is. By the way, we should also mention, before we get into that, so Barkov and Huberdeau is having a great game today, actually. Barkov and Hornqvist, both injured currently for Florida. So they're having really bad injury luck, and now losing Ekblad long-term is like really terrible. Hopefully Barkov and Hornqvist are more short-term and could be back as soon as next week. But yeah, right now they're running not the best team against Dallas. We're 2 periods down. It's 3-1 for Florida. So, okay, all that context said, let's hear your assessment of who's this player who maybe now is going to get a second lease on life when you were thinking he was about to go down, like assuming Barkov and Hornqvist are back by the time, next week or the week after.
Well, it was already a roller coaster of a season for Keith Yandel, who's 76% rostered. He just had 7 points in his last 19 games going into tonight's action and only 39 shots. So that's fine, but it's not what we hope for from him. And if you look at his minutes, they're dropping 2 minutes a year since Quenneville came in. He went from 17 minutes to 15 minutes last year. And this year he's gone from 15 minutes to 13 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time per game, basically being used as a power play specialist, which is nice. It's almost like a Vince Dunn role though, because it's apple or bust for Yandel in terms of his fantasy value. And he's busted in 13 of his last 19 games, again, going into Sunday's action. So I guess with Ekblad out, I'm actually not sure his 5-on-5 fortunes changed a whole lot, but maybe he's going to be a little more involved in the power play. So I guess that's the fantasy impact there on Keith Yandel. I think more likely it opens up another forward spot on that Florida power play, because I'm not sure. I guess you could say, I don't know offhand, does Mackenzie Weegar have the same handedness as Aaron Ekblad?
Well, I don't think Weegar has been the guy getting any power play time. Marcus Nudivara has some power play time today on the second unit. I saw Gustav Forsling was getting some power play time at times. I think maybe those would be the defensemen that would be next in line to get on the top power play. But I agree with you. It might be good for someone like Anthony Duclair, Carter Verhaeghe, that type of player. Maybe Alex Wenberg. Remember Alex Wenberg used to be this power play specialist back on Columbus, I believe. ish.
Yeah,
I don't
like,
know.
yeah,
Not exactly a
very,
specialist, but he used to get some power play time. Frank
yeah.
Vetrano, like there could be like some of these right now we don't know. So it's obviously something to pay attention to.
I guess the one guy I'll name then is Marcus Nudivara, who is the other, like he and Radko Gudas are the only other right-handed defensemen in that Florida lineup. So that could be a 5-on-5 and a power play boost for Nudivara unless they seek outside help or they have somebody else coming up. But I'm pretty sure that handedness is going to matter. They just waived Anton Strawman. Not that that would have any impact. I think he's pretty much done. But I wonder if he gets another look somehow. Yeah. Anyway, that's a really rough situation in Florida right now. Like Barkov being out hurts them hugely. Like that already made me concerned for what their goaltending would be able to accomplish. And then Hornqvist is out and now Ekblad. It's like Ekblad and Barkov are, I think, the two most important pieces of that Panthers roster. And Hornqvist with his play this year isn't that far behind. So we'll have to watch closely. Like we were talking last week about how legit cup contenders the Panthers were, and a lot has changed very suddenly since then.
Yeah, no, it's a sad situation. Like, last year there were teams like the Islanders and was the Penguins that had some really bad injury trouble that maybe kept them from being as big contenders as we thought they would be. And now like Florida, yeah, there's going to be a lot to overcome for sure. Though, like we said, hopefully Barkov's back right now. Noel Acciari is centering, I guess, the second line or the first line with Duclair and Verhaeghe. So like a bump for him for as long as Barkov is up, but really like how much even is it? So, okay, that's enough Panthers talk, I guess. All the best to Aaron Ekblad and Brian. Okay, so let's get into this. So we've got each a list to start our top 10 players that we expect their Yahoo % rostered to go up between now and the rest of the season. So they're too low. We think they're going to be even better. So why don't we just kind of go back and forth, throwing names out? If you throw out a name that I have on my list, I'll let you know, and vice versa. And why don't you go ahead and take the floor if you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first with someone who's pretty obvious. I'm going to start with a really easy one, a slam dunk. So a player that we expect their % roster to go up from here on out. Basically saying you're going to want him more than you've wanted him for the last little while is Kirby Dach, who's right now 20% rostered, and that number is already rising. He had a decent rookie season in Chicago where he was under the radar. He had a few good opportunities, didn't do a whole lot with them, but finished the year with 12 points in 21 games and a lot of good deployment, playing with either Patrick Kane or Alex DeBrincat, and like I said, some power play opportunity. But then it was in the playoffs where Dach really looked like he'd stepped forward with 6 points in 9 playoff games. And of course, that's a small sample and not something we're going to dig too deep into it, like in thinking this is who he is. He's going to score 6 points every 9 games. But it was really nice to see him step up and perform at the NHL level, which we hadn't done. And he's still a young guy. So we were all excited to see what he was able to do this season, especially with Taves not being able to play. It was going to be Dach's chance to shine. And then, of course, he had that big wrist injury before the season. So he's back before we expected, and he's already back on the top power play. Plus he's got this chance of continuing to play with Patrick Kane at 5-on-5. So we've liked Pius Suter for that reason. We've liked freaking Carl Soderberg this year for that reason. So there's no reason not to like Kirby Dach for all the same reasons, plus a little more because he might be a better NHL player than both of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dach definitely has the pedigree to be a superstar of the league. We'll see if he could do it this year as a 20-year-old. But I saw so he played his first game on yesterday. He played on a line with, what was it? Like, I think Ryan Strome or something, or Dylan Strome, I should say. Today, pregame line. So unfortunately, we're recording this and Chicago's playing a game that's just started. So we won't be able to give you the most up to date, but I haven't seen Kirby Dach playing on the line with Patrick Kane. So this might be the day that Dach becomes, we'll see if he has a big game. We'll give updates as the podcast goes. But yeah, I totally agree with you. This is a guy who you're going to want to jump on. If you're in a deepish league, if you're in a super deep league, then definitely grab him. If you're in like a shallow league, maybe you don't have to jump on him because maybe you'll just wait until he does something, but definitely add him to your watch list. And if he starts producing with Patrick Kane, it looks like that's something that's going to stick. You're probably going to want Dach. He was drafted in a lot of leagues this year that were drafted before the World Junior Championships when he had that wrist injury. So I'm totally with you. He was on my list as well, Brian. So we've just knocked out an extra player. And now I guess I could give you the next person on my list. And that is Nick Ritchie over on the Boston Bruins. So Ritchie is someone, we actually brought him up recently on our list of biggest surprises of the season. We did that show about a month ago. So maybe it seems weird that now, like, I'm bringing up again as someone who I'm expecting to still be a surprise when we already had him on the list of biggest surprises. But basically, after we did that show, he went on a huge cold streak. He only had 1 goal and no assists in a 12-game stretch. But if you look at the Bruins deployment, he's basically in that same spot that he was in when he was hot, right? He's been playing on the top power play and he's been playing on the second line with David Krejci. And I think that, that's something that if it's worked for him in the past, I think it could work for him in the future. And, if you look at yesterday's box score, he had a goal and an assist, 5 shots, 4 hits versus Buffalo. And he's probably available again now. So I'm not saying he's like a sure thing, but so yesterday when I wrote this, he was 12% rostered. Now he's already up to 16% rostered. Boston's playing today, and Bergeron just scored a goal from Pasternak and Grishlik, like a minute left. So, okay, no, did the goal get, ESPN just took away the goal. But anyway, I like Nick Ritchie. I think he's in a good spot. And I think he's someone that if you liked him before, there's no reason not to like him for the same reasons now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the reason to not like him is that he wasn't consistently producing, but 12% or even 16% seems pretty low for someone who is still getting regular time on the top power play in Boston. And if he's someone you had previously decided that you have no time for, maybe he would change your mind by the fact that he has, I'm just adding up today's shots on goal total 2, carry the 1. He's got 19 shots on goal in his last 5 games, almost 4 shots per game. So even if he's not scoring, that could be pretty decent value in your format. Also, he hits. That's still happening. So those are a couple reasons that you could bide your time and be patient for Nick Ritchie to actually produce, which you're going to have to be. You mentioned, Elon, that he had that really nice 2-point game against Buffalo on Saturday, but in his last 13 games, he's been scoreless in 11 of them. So those shots on goal weren't coming for those, though. So if you want to try taking a fresh breath of Nick Ritchie, I can see why now would be the time. I'm going to go ahead to another guy on my list.
Oh, wait, I want to just respond quickly to what you said, if that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
I just think, for this episode, anyways, for some of the players, I'm trying to take out a crystal ball a little bit. I'm not going to go only okay, this guy's on a hot streak, so you should grab him. I'm just giving you someone who I think right now is not highly rostered, and I just have a hunch that he's going to get hot again. It's kind of funny if you ever listen to Dave Betton's Stream Scheme, which I know you do, we're big fans. He kind of goes with the opposite approach as us sometimes. He's recommending players who are pointless or have been pointless in a while, because he says, oh, they're due. And when there's a player who's gotten a lot of points recently, he's almost oh, okay, well, he probably won't keep it up, which is probably not a good way to think about it, but also it's at the same time not a great way to think about it. And I know he's just trying to be funny, and it's it is an interesting way to play, because I think we sometimes get too caught up in this guy's on a hot streak, that means he's worth more than this guy who's on a cold streak. But really, at the end of the day, we should just be looking at, okay, Nick Ritchie, top power play, second line, and now, like you say, he's getting shots. So yeah, I'm definitely not saying he's a sure thing. I'm more into Kirby Doc of this list, but yeah, I feel the reason why I put him on my list is because he had that cold stretch, which meant that his percent rostered fell all the way to 16%, which is now making me think that it should be higher.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And of course, Dave, going along with the way you just described how he kind of picks his streamers, his team name in the Cupful was once Gambler's Fallacy, right? Which is that because something has happened so many times, this is a gambler's fallacy, that the next time the odds are higher that something different will happen. Whereas if you're playing a slot machine, it's actually the exact same likelihood with each pull, whether you've won 10 times in a row or lost 10 times in a row. So I feel that sort of applies here. So I like that you're going for a guy who is showing some signs of life, but not obvious signs of life. I have somebody who is on the top power play and very much showing signs of life, and that's over in Nashville with Eeli Tolvanen, who's still only 27% rostered, even though Tolvanen has 11 points in his last 12 games. And we told you about him. We told you when he first started getting that top power play billing that he might be the answer to Nashville's 3-year-long power play woes. And Elon, you can tell me, but I think the results are in. Since February 23rd, when Tolvanen became a fixture on that top unit in Nashville, their power play is 13 for 48. That's a 27% conversion rate. Compare that with a 15% conversion rate before Tolvanen took up his spot on that top unit. And now Tolvanen's up to 9 power play points already on the season, which is 1 behind Josi and 2 behind Philip Forsberg, who have both had, with missing a couple games because of injury, but they've had full top power play deployment all year. So Ellie Tolvanen, I think, is the answer for that Nashville power play. And I think they're just going to keep looking to him as some magic bullet that somehow has changed. As their magic bullet. There's like a fable, right? With like that string of Christmas lights. Do I know this from a Simpsons parody, or is it like Miracle on 34th Street where there's like this special magic bulb that fixes the whole string of lights?
I don't
Do you
know,
what
man.
I'm talking about?
Well, okay, you're saying that basically you think
Tolvanen's the
Tolvanen...
magic bulb. And at 5-on-5, he's been playing on the top line with Forsberg and Ryan Johansson. With Forsberg out, he's been replaced by Arvidsson, but Tolvanen is still there with Arvidsson and Ryan Johansson. So I think that Ellie Tolvanen should and will be higher rostered than 27%.
Yeah, I agree with you. To be honest, I didn't put him on my list just because I felt like we've talked about him so much already and I just didn't want to bring him up again. But you're right. It's an obvious answer because he's great and he deserves to be higher. And I definitely agree with you. He'll be higher for sure. I mean, I had to pick 10, right? That was your reason
for not putting Tolvanen on your list, but you put Nick Ritchie on your list, who you started by talking about saying, well, we just brought him up recently.
Well, okay, Brian, I don't know why you're being antagonistic with
Sorry, I take it back. I appreciate that you want to bring in some new names. I hope the rest of my names are new enough.
All I was saying was like with Nick Ritchie, right? It was someone who I think a lot of people have given up on. So I'm saying maybe take another look. Tolvanen, yeah, we've been saying, short shifts have been saying it. We're all saying it. If you still have Tolvanen as a free agent in your league, we've told you enough times now. Okay, so we're not bringing him up again. So this is your final warning.
Until next week.
Until he goes cold. And then I could predict that I think he'll do better.
Then you'll be singing his name from the rooftops.
Yes. Okay. So fine. Let me do an easy one now, since you just did. I want to bring up Phil Kessel, who, when I prepared this yesterday, was 28% rostered. He's now up to 29% rostered, which isn't that high for someone who just scored a hat trick yesterday versus San Jose. Plus, he had goals in 2 previous games, and he had assists in the 2 previous games before that. So Phil Kessel's on a nice, tidy 5-game point streak. Plus, what I love the most about his hat trick yesterday against San Jose, all 3 goals on the power play. So I guess a lot like Ellie Tolvanen, like we thought a couple years ago, right? That Kessel was going to come into Arizona and he'd like fix their power play, and it didn't really happen. But it seems like whatever's happening now, like it's clicking. He's getting the top power play time and he's like producing. And like, again, just like with Nick Ritchie, I'm not saying like, oh, Phil Kessel's like the best. He should be 100% rostered. Like obviously it depends on your league settings, but 28% seems pretty low for someone. Also for the fact that he says the name value, he's like someone who we expect, if I'm picking between 2 random free agents that look around the same, I'll go with the guy who's, done it more in the past. And Kessel's like shown us he can have good stretches. He's also had really bad stretches. Like a lot of this season, he was super cold, which is why he's only 29% rostered at this point. But, he's playing at even strength with Clayton Keller, which I like. And I love that I'm seeing him cashing on the power play. So I think that in a lot of leagues, if Kessel's out there, now might be a good time to go and grab him.
Thank goodness he's cashing in on the power play. 10 power play points for Phil Kessel in 35 games, which is one of the better totals in the league so far, and definitely one of the quieter better totals in the league too. Without that production, man, he's having a really rough season at even strength, where he has near career low point scoring rates with really, really strong variance. Like his shooting percentage at 5-on-5 is high, his IPP is high, and yet he's barely doing anything at 5-on-5 with that luck. So thank goodness for Phil Kessel's power play production, which, yeah, okay, I guess it could keep him afloat. And it kind of explains, because he has 2 power play goals in his last 2 games, that helps explain how he scored 5 times on his last 9 shots, which is concerning for me. Honestly, I think this is a desert mirage here. I'm not really buying into Phil Kessel being able to sustain fantasy relevance all the way through to the end of the season. I think he might just be like a grab him for a stream and maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe you'll decide he's worth keeping, but I don't. So what's his percent rostered, Elon? Did you mention?
29%.
Honestly, that sounds right to me.
All right. Well, so the fun thing is we'll be able to go back and like look and see, if we were right or wrong at the end of the season, because we'll be able to just look at the final numbers. By the way, I'll mention one other thing about Arizona. So Kemper and Ranta are now both injured, because this is the Coyotes and they can't have nice things, except that Aiden Hill has now taken over and he just had his 3rd straight win. Yesterday, he shut out the San Jose Sharks. So look at this guy. All of a sudden, Aiden Hill's on a nice run. He's the for sure starting goalie. No sign. Apparently, Ranta's like going to be long term. Like, forget about him. And we haven't heard much about Kemper coming back anytime soon. So again, just like last week we were talking about, there's like randomly new goalies available in free agency all the time. Like if you have UC Saros and now you have to put him in your IR and you're trying to figure out who to replace him with, put Aiden Hill in there because he's now a starting goalie. I'm not saying he's going to be amazing. It's hard to predict goalies, but he's going to be a volume guy and he seems to be doing pretty well right now.
Okay. Yeah. So you can go ahead and look at Aiden Hill. Poor. Well, I don't even know. Poor. I mean, I'm sure Antti Ranta is so frustrated. Every opportunity, like he doesn't get a lot of opportunity because Kemper's outplayed him. And then every opportunity he gets, he loses. Aiden, because of injury. Aiden Hill has not been fantastic this year. And I think I'd be nervous to start him, but I will still give him a shot, I guess. He's somehow a 920 on the year, even though, is that right? How is that possible?
Because he hasn't been bad. I don't know. He had a couple bad games, but he hasn't played that much, and he has now put up 3 straight games in a row.
Okay, so I feel like something's wrong with. I'm looking on Hockey Reference. I see he started the season with an appearance where he stopped 14 of 14 shots, and he had a 34 save shutout. But the games in between that were all between 885 and 909. How does that? Anyway, I guess. I'm not sold on Aiden Hill, but sure, if you need a goalie, go for it. One Coyote whose production I don't think is a desert mirage at 43% rostered, Clayton freaking Keller. He's breaking out, everybody. It's finally happening. He just had 4 points in 10 games to begin the season, but do you know how many points? I'm not even going to ask. I'm not going to pause for you to answer. He has 24 points in his last 25 games. And his own numbers have actually held steady. Nothing really seems to be changing in his game, except his 5-on-5 on-ice shooting percentage, which has been absurdly low the last few seasons, would seem to be unsustainably low, is now a little unsustainably high. So that's this change for Clayton Keller, where maybe he's just deserved better all along, and the bounces just haven't gone his way, which we've been open to. But man, it's finally going Clayton Keller's way. He's pacing for 19 power play points on the season. 3 power play goals on 11 power play shots have helped, but he's not the shooter there anyway, and his assist rates look nice. So I'm not being like, oh, unsustainable power play shooting percentage, forget it. My question is, how is Clayton Keller only 43% rostered? And by the way, I'm going to give myself a little credit here because just in naming him on this list, because I think the closer we get to that 50% threshold, the more of a limb you might be going out on to say, like, because it has to rise. Someone below 50% has to rise. It's easy to say a 10% guy might rise. He's already at 43%, and I think he should be over that 50% threshold for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely do not disagree. I wonder, like, I'd be interested to see these leagues where he's not rostered. Is it all just like super shallow leagues, or are some leagues like dead leagues where Yahoo's counting them even though no one has made any moves since the draft? Like, I'd be interested to know why people aren't more into Clayton Keller at this point. You'd think he'd be rostered everywhere. He's rostered in all of my leagues. I'm in 5 leagues, including some shallowish ones, but he's not anywhere available for me. Okay. Next up, by the way, when you brought up Eli Tolvanen, I should have just mentioned I have UC Saros on my list. Now, if he's day to day, like hopefully he's fine. So we don't know. This is like a new injury news that I started feuding with the Nashville Predators Twitter account about. But anyways, he's like easy. We've already talked about him. So I don't even want to spend time getting into UC Saros. Like one thing I did want to mention is like when I was preparing this yesterday, he was only 53% rostered on Yahoo. Like guys ahead of him are like Carey Price, Jordan Binnington, Anderson, Rask, Leonard, Lankinen, Hart, Kakkonen, Mike Smith. Like I felt like as I was going through this list, I was like, I want like UC Saros probably above all of these guys the way he's been playing lately. So now obviously maybe things change because he's day to day, but regardless. So let me just move on then, since maybe we've already talked about UC Saros a lot. Do another goalie who is very low rostered and for good reason at this point. But I think Linus Ullmark is about to have a bit of a surge. So he's only 18% rostered on Yahoo as of yesterday. He's back from his injury, right? He returned on Saturday, stopped 33 of 36 in the 3-2 loss to Boston, which is actually good, right? Like they were ahead at the start of the game for the first time in a while. It looked like Buffalo was actually taking the Boston Bruins, who are a good team. Yeah, Marchand was on the COVID list, but they've taken them to a 1-goal game. I think a lot of that has to do with Linus Ullmark. In fact, like, okay, so without Ullmark, they've lost 17 in a row now. So obviously they're a terrible team. You think, why would I want a Buffalo goalie? But believe it or not, Linus Ullmark's record on the season is 5-5-2. Like he's basically a 50% goalie. So I think, I'm not saying he's going to like fix all of the Sabres problems, but I think that they'll win a few more games now that they have an okay goalie. And also, regardless of, I think he's good. Like, I just think he's a good goalie, right? So at the end of the day, like, I think he'll probably put up decent rate numbers. I know the Buffalo defense isn't great. Like, everything about Buffalo is bad, but I still think Linus Ullmark is worth rostered in a lot of leagues, unless it's like super shallow. But 18%, probably there's some leagues where people might want him.
I would suggest that if your league has a heavy value on goals that you don't, or sorry, I would suggest that if your league has a heavy value on wins that you might not want Linus Ullmark, and I'm just going to put it out there. But if his rate stats might help you, plus you might get some help from the odd win. Like if he can be a 500 goalie, sure, that's helpful. Then yeah, definitely take a look. There are a couple leagues where I've considered looking at him, where I did once roster him, and since his return, now that Buffalo's in fire sale mode, like Stahl is gone. Taylor Hall's going to be gone before long. We'll see who else disappears from that already thin roster. I don't know that I really want Linus Ullmark, although I guess that my next pick is going to contradict my thinking there. I guess if Linus Ullmark, I'll blow it now. If Linus Ullmark can put up Jonathan Bernier numbers, then I am happy with rostering Linus Ullmark. I guess the difference between the two to me is that Linus Ullmark has played, like he's played well. He's been all right. He's been about an average goalie through a lot of measures. So a .918 save percentage is definitely a very nice thing to see, and I'm not going to look past it. So that's positive, but it was on a team that was better then than I think they're going to be now. So that's my caveat with going out and getting Linus Ullmark. Jonathan Bernier, also a .918 save percentage, 11% owned right now. And that just means 11% of fantasy hockey managers listen to keeping Carlson, because this is another take we've been sharing through the season. But I think maybe his percent rostered is down because of his injury, and we'll wait to see how soon he can go back. He's still just listed as day-to-day, right? So I'm hoping it's soon. But compare him to Ullmark. They have the same save percentage, but Jonathan Bernier has a better Delta Fenwick save percentage, which means he's doing better relative to his workload, like performing higher above what you'd expect the average NHL goalie to do with his workload. Plus, Bernier's quality start percentage, 75% this season compared to Ullmark's 53%, which is fine. That's good. That's like average. It's good. So Ullmark looks very average. Jonathan Bernier looks above average. I think they're on equally bad teams. So if I had my choice, I would take Bernier. Elon, would you take Ullmark?
I mean, Bernier's injured. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
assume Bernier is healthy.
But he's like, we haven't heard any news of him even practicing yet. I know you're saying he's listed as day to day, but like for me right now, I'm not thinking about Bernier. Sure, like we already said last episode that grab him and stash him. And yeah, like clearly Detroit needs him. Though it's interesting to note that Calvin Pickard had a really good game today. He got the second game in a back-to-back and got a win over over Columbus, a 4-1 win. And so like all of a sudden, like Detroit, it's nice that they have a goalie. It's also terrible for Thomas Greiss. Like imagine thinking that he was going to be good going into the season, and now he's just doing nothing. He can't even get a back-to-back with Calvin Pickard as the other goalie. But yeah, it's clearly like Detroit goalies can do well. Bernier was doing well, so I'm with you on that. I'll actually jump to another Detroit player now. First, speaking of the Sabres and how you were saying that everyone's bad there, like maybe except for Ullmark at this point, I'll point out that I didn't want to put them on the list just because I feel like it's beating a dead horse. But like Eric Stahl got a bump to 10% after his trade to Montreal. He's not even on Buffalo anymore, but like that's for sure going to go down. I think that Stahl, if we want to do like a quick trade analysis, I think Stahl's like a depth piece for the Habs. And I think people, whenever they get traded, you're like, oh, let me add this guy. Maybe there'll be something. So I understand that, but that's for sure going to go down. I'm pretty confident. And also like Taylor Hall, 70%, that's going to go down. Olofsson, 42%. I think that'll go down. So it's like most of these Sabres I would predict to go down. I might even drop Taylor Hall, Brian. To be honest, next week, Buffalo plays Monday and Wednesday against Philly. And we've seen some players do very well against Philly lately, specifically Mika Zibanejad. So I'm going to hold Hall for those two games in the cupful. But if he does nothing again, like he's done all this week, that might be it for me. I might just straight up drop him.
I think that's fair. I mean, we're at a point, I think, where you're really just holding on to Taylor Hall to see where he gets traded. And with the NHL trade deadline coming up, I would preach a little more patience, because it seems like it's a guarantee he's going somewhere else. Like he's not going to be in Buffalo. So I still believe in Taylor Hall. I still think he could be a really great person to have on your roster. And I would hate to drop him, have him traded, and then be back to being someone who's productive and helpful to my fantasy team. So that would be the caveat for anyone planning on dropping Taylor Hall. Honestly, if you've waited him out this long, you like, I don't know.
I mean,
like,
easy for you to say. You're comfortable in your playoff race. Like some people need to win their matchups.
So yeah, of course, it all depends on your level of desperation. Yeah. You, meanwhile, are like you're experiencing both sides of that coin because you've waited on Zibanejad and Hall all year long. You've now seen Zibanejad just go wild over the last week, and you must feel really great about that. So you know it can happen. But I guess you've waited long enough on both these guys. I assume your patience is wearing pretty thin.
I mean, they're not the same player, right? Like Mika Zibanejad, I think, was like still getting his looks all season long. Yeah. Taylor Hall's been like nothing. But anyway, okay. Like I promised, we're going to go to Detroit now to continue on this Jonathan. I knew you'd bring up Jonathan Bernier. I should have just assumed that. Okay, my Detroit player, though, has got to be...
Do we have an ad break? I'm just going to...
Let's just do it after, because I already started talking. Has got to be... Robbie Fabry, who is currently 12% rostered. So it's already climbing, right? You might have to get on this train quickly because he was 8% rostered when I wrote this yesterday. But Fabry had a goal in the 3-1 win versus Columbus on Saturday, which brought him to 17 points in 26 games. I believe he had another assist today on Sunday versus Columbus. So, make that 18 points in 27 games, like over 55-point pace now and climbing. He's been skating on the top line with Larkin, 9 points in his last 10 games. So this is a guy that's on fire in a good spot. I'd prefer him over like an Anthony Mantha, who's been playing on the second line, and Mantha's still rostered in a lot more leagues. Mantha did actually score on Saturday, and he had assists today himself. So I don't mean this to be like a beat on Anthony Mantha, but I'm just saying like in a lot of leagues, obviously a little bit deeper, Robbie Fabry is someone who would definitely be on my roster. And then I also wrote here, I've already brought him up, but also Calvin Pickard is someone like an Aiden Hill, maybe like an Aiden Hill light, or no, that's stupid. Like the same as Aiden Hill, basically. Like as long as Bernier's injured, Pickard is going to get probably all the starts because Thomas Greiss is bad. Wait, who's worse, Pickard or Hill?
Pickard.
Okay, I mean, come on. At this point, you just were like trashing Aiden Hill before and saying you don't have faith in him. So now you want to say you have lower faith than no faith?
No, I didn't say I have no faith in Hill, but the team he plays for isn't as good. Pickard's team is not as good as Hill's, and Pickard we've seen get chances and be bad. So,
yeah, well, 2 good games in a row now. All I'm saying is, like, if you need a goalie, he's someone who's out there that's going to play well a lot and whatever. Yeah, but maybe my main answer was Robbie Fabry, so you could comment on him.
Yeah, Robbie Fabry at this point is who Bobby Ryan was at the start of the season, right? Bobby Ryan's percent rostered climbed and climbed and climbed as he had a series of outstanding games to start the season. And Robbie Fabry's coming on hot lately. As you mentioned, like you shared, and like I'm totally with you. I would ride this hot streak and just be mindful that at some point it's going to stop and you're going to want to cut bait pretty quickly is my feeling. He's scoring at a 21% clip this season compared to his usual career, like 13, maybe 14%. And I just don't see that this can really last, especially because while he might be on a good power play unit, the Wings are still splitting their power play pretty close to 50% most nights. The last few have changed, but I don't know if that's on purpose or not. The nice thing about Fabry is he is seeing career high ice times. He's seen 20 minutes almost 3 times in his last 4 games. And this is a guy who's never really seen more than 16 minutes a game up until now. So now's a really nice time to check out Robbie Fabry. Just be ready to check out on Robbie Fabry as soon as the points stop coming. You're muted.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, that's one of my picks of like just someone who's so low that I think he'll go up. But that, I promise, Brian, I'll bring you some like higher percent rostered guys that are more sure things in a little bit. So, okay, but how about before we move forward to our next players, we still got a lot to go. We got more players that we expect are going to be going up. And then we've also got a whole slew of players that we expect to go down for the rest of the season. But first, let's take a second to thank some sponsors for this episode of Keeping Carlson. And I want to start by thanking our distributor for this podcast, Blue Wire. It's been really fun getting onto Blue Wire and being able to be part of their network. And you know what? If you're listening to this and you're thinking maybe you want to make a podcast one day, maybe you should think about hosting your own podcast with our distributor, Blue Wire Pods. And there's no better place to host than Blue Wire Hustle. So they created this thing called Hustle. It's great to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or if you want to host a podcast and just don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place for you. As part of the program, you're going to receive personal cover art, Q&As with Blue Wire's top podcasters. Lisa Leslie's on there. I don't know. You'll probably could even find better people than Brian and I. Access to our community Discord, e-learning course full of tips and tricks. Blue Wire Hustle's got it all. And on top of that, they'll get your show pushed to, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, all the listening platforms. And you could get this for only $15 a month. That's the same rate you're going to pay if you want to host your podcast somewhere else. But you post, you get in on Blue Wire Hustle, and you're going to get all of this. Plus, they are going to help you to be good at giving all that free cover art and stuff. You're definitely not getting that on your other podcast providers. So if you're ready to do more than just listening to Brian and I talk about your favorite team, then make your voice heard in Hustle. Acceptance into the program is limited, so get your application in today. To apply, go to bwhustle.com. To apply, go to bwhustle.com/join. Check out the description box in this episode to find out more. That's bwhustle.com/join.
I'm just gonna go into the MyBookie one now. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have everything loaded for that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we'd also like to thank another sponsor of the show, mybookie.ag, who, if you're a hockey fan or a fan of sports in general, beyond just hockey, I guess other sports exist. Everyone knows that MyBookie has a ton of opportunities to play and bet on your favorite sports and sports moments, and even like in game as you go, there's constantly updating lines and props that you can bet on. Like, for example, Elon, you're on mybookie.ag right now, and they're in-game bets to make on the NHL action happening right now. What do you see on the board?
So it's pretty funny. So right now, Florida is winning 3-1 over Dallas with how long? 3 minutes to go. And you can actually still bet on this game. You could take is Dallas going to win by more than 2? Or sorry, is Florida going to win by more than 2 or not to get more even odds? Or you can take a 770 plus 775, which means 77-1 odds, I believe, or maybe 775-1 odds. Sorry, that's 770. I can't even talk. That's 775-1 odds if you want to bet on Dallas to win with 3 minutes left. So you could just make these fun, long shot bets midway through the game. I don't know, it's fun. Brian, imagine playing fantasy hockey and you could add and drop players mid game. Wouldn't that be so fun? I have this guy, he's in my free agency. I see he's having a good game. I want to add him now. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get the production he's already had in the game, but I can still bet on what's going to happen the rest of the game. Yahoo's got to invent that. But if you want to bet on games, MyBookie's already got it. You can bet on all this stuff mid game. It's fun.
What do I get if I just bet on Florida to win?
You're looking at, you have to bet $4,900 to win $1.
I'm in. That would be that seems like a bad decision, but hopefully you don't make bad decisions when you go over to mybookie.ag and check in their in-game odds and props. You can sign up today at mybookie.ag and use the promo code Carlson, and you will get your first deposit bonus up to one. And you can get a 50% bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. That's promo code Carlson to claim your free cash bonus and add some more excitement to the sports you already love. You can bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie.ag. And if you plan on heading over there, also head over to responsiblegambling.org, which has lots of great tips about gambling responsibly online, including, believe it or not, limiting alcohol, taking frequent breaks, not trying to win back what you've lost. You can head over there and see the rest at responsiblegambling.org.
Okay, so like I said, we've got a lot to get to. We'll be back soon. You're listening to Keeping Carlson. Okay, so Brian, let's get back to it. We've got more players to talk about that we think their Yahoo percent ownership, or there are a lot of players who we think their Yahoo percent rosterage is going to go up between now and the end of the season. I just went with Robbie Fabry, so I believe it's your turn. Who do you got for us?
I'm going to go into the level of rostership that you have been dabbling in or mired in for most of this episode so far. I'm going to a guy who is 9% rostered, and his name is Jason Zucker. He has now participated in a full practice with Pittsburgh. Course. And the quote is that he is a lot closer to returning. Actually, the quote is a whole lot closer to returning. Before Zucker was injured, he was playing with Malkin, Kapanen, and Brian Rust. I guess the issue with not wanting Zucker, well, they're plenty. They're plenty. I think it's easy this feels like an easy one to me to just predict that Zucker playing is going to gain and garner some interest. The problem for him is that there's nowhere good in the lineup to land right now, right? With Malkin hurt, except maybe on that top power play where Jared McCann is right now. So I wonder if Zucker can slide in there. His shot rates haven't been great all season, which is a reason we've always liked him on the show, but he did have 9 shots in 3 games before getting hurt. And his shots on goal per game had always been feast or famine this season, and he had been feasting right before he got injured. So I would love for him to come back and do a little bit more feasting. For me, he's a guy, like if I have an extra move to spend, I'll happily add him to my roster, stash him, and see how the first couple games go. I'd be ready to drop him. I'd prefer Robbie Fabry right now for what that's worth. But I also think that you might find some deep value in Jason Zucker, who I guess nobody wanted to hold on to and stash earlier on this season.
Yeah, I mean, he was a free agent in a lot of my leagues before he got injured. So I guess it's not surprising that he hasn't been added since. By the way, you can go to gamedaylinetweets.com where you've got up-to-date practice lines. And I see Zucker has been at practice. He's been playing on a line with McCann and Rodriguez, which I guess is the second line. Then he's been practicing on the second power play unit with Marino, Matheson, Rodriguez, and like Anthony Angelo. The top power play has been Letang, Crosby, Gensel, Rust, and McCann. Like you mentioned, Jared McCann like is on a run, right? So I guess it makes sense why he hasn't bumped from that top power play yet. I'm just bringing him up right now.
Well, he also hasn't been bumped from that top power play because give me the name of somebody who should bump him.
Sorry, I'm having trouble. How do you spell this guy's name? MCAA?
MCCANN.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Okay, I got it now.
You heard my question though, right?
Yeah, who else was there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll answer that. First of all, he's got 5 points in his last 3 games, 3 power play points in his last 2 games. That was what I was about to say about how he's doing well. But you're right, there hasn't been any great options to bump him yet. And I guess you consider Jason Zucker. You've always loved Jason Zucker, right? So to you, it's like obvious that Jason Zucker is like much, much better than Jared McCann. I feel like it's maybe a coin flip about who's actually better at this point.
I mean, I'll definitely cop to loving Zucker a lot less. Like I thought going to Pittsburgh was going to be a really nice thing for him. It hasn't been. I don't have a ton of faith. I'm just pointing him out as somebody that you could add and stash.
Sure. And by the way, so I'll give you another guy you can add and stash that I had on my list here. So another injured player that's apparently like maybe not as far along as Jason Zucker, but I've seen he's like day to day and getting better and could be back maybe next week or the week after. And that's Colton Parayko. If you need defense, he's only 39% rostered on Yahoo. He hasn't played much this year, only 16 games, 8 points in those 16 games. So it's like a 42-point pace. He's apparently been skating, like I said, could be back soon. And he's a guy, he gets great peripheral. So maybe this isn't the most exciting pick if you're in like a points only league, but if you're into bangers and mash and you got your shots and your hits and your blocks, Colton Parayko pretty much fills the stat sheet, and he could be like a 40+ point defenseman, which is hard to find in a lot of deeper leagues. So he's someone I just stashed in the couple. I dropped Erik Karlsson for him actually, and then brought in Kirby Dach, a little like triple move there. And yeah, I'm banking on Parayko being more valuable to me than Erik Karlsson, who I actually have Carl. I'll just say it now. I have Erik Karlsson on my list of people who I expect to go down. He's at 63%, and I think that's going to keep falling. He's doing nothing, but I don't know if we want to hammer that home too much. But yeah, Colton Parayko, I'm into.
By the way, I can hear you like banging on your desk or your mic or something when you're like pausing, trying to think of things to say, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we'll wait on him. Erik Karlsson is on both of our lists, I guess, which does not surprise me. But Parayko himself is a nice little guy you can add to your roster for sure. I'll just temper expectations for filling your categories. He's averaging a couple shots, a couple blocks, and a hit per game so far, which is not nothing. Like that's decent, but it's not like huge contributions to those. It's modest contributions to a few different cats instead of some really big contributions to one or two of them. So that's what to keep in mind if you're looking at adding and stashing Colton Parayko, which I definitely recommend, especially because you might be hard up for D. I've got a lot of defense, by the way, on my list of guys whose percent rostered should go down the rest of the season, but let's stick with guys whose percent rostered should go up this season. And I'm scrolling through my list. I don't have any Blues. I don't have any defensemen. So I'm just going to pick somebody just because, and that's going to be Brock Nelson, whose percent rostered is 35% right now, which I understand he's never been the sexiest, the most exciting guy to have on your fantasy team, but he's been, well, we call him Brock Steady around these parts, but he was not Brock Steady to start the season, just 4 points in 12 games. But now he's back doing his thing, 10 points in his last 13, 16 points in his last 23 games played. And that puts him right up at that 57-point pace that we're so used to expecting. We feel so comfortable expecting. And he's been putting up that 57-point pace over the last 6 weeks, which is a long enough sample for me to be like, yeah, Brock Nelson is back being Brock Nelson, Barry Trotz's favorite adult son. Last year, the reason Brock Nelson performed above that rate, he paced for 65 points, was because his on-ice shooting percentage was too high. This year, it's been too low so far at 7.5%, which is why I think on the season, his point pace isn't at 57 points, but it is over the last 6 weeks again. So I think that's going well for him. I think everything is fine under the hood with Brock Nelson. He's also having the best power play performance of his career, despite not much different deployment than in the past. And this is also a moment where I'll mention that the Isles had 5 forwards on the power play the other night for 70 seconds. It was definitely the third, not the first or second most used iteration of their power play. So it might have just been a long change that didn't pan out. So just something to watch for in the next couple games to see if they go 5 forwards again. If a team could go 5 forwards because they have no capable defense to quarterback that unit and add value, the Isles would be up there in teams I would nominate to try a 5th forward on. So Nelson was one of those 5 forwards. Again, I'm not counting on this sticking, but right now, assuming it doesn't stick, Nelson's still stuck on the second power play unit behind Matt Martin, who's been on the top unit. I don't know if there's a chance for Nelson to move up to the top unit or not, but in any case, I like him as a super steady 55, 60-point guy, and that's not always easy to find, and he's available in 65% of Yahoo leagues right now. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's been quiet for a lot of the year, starting to heat up now, like you said. So he's the kind of guy that I wouldn't be surprised if it just stays around the same, just because I don't expect him to go like super hot. I think, like you say, he's going to be like steady, maybe a point every couple of games, maybe like averaging to like 2 points every 3 games. But yeah, definitely, like if he's available in your league, he's someone that you can add and feel somewhat comfortable that he'll do something for you on most nights. So he's a pretty solid pick. Okay, so let me go now, Brian. I feel like I have one player who's like low rostered, and then I have a couple who are very high that I still think will go higher. So I feel like you want me to bring you some heat here. So let me do it. I'll do a slam dunk. This is like a joke. We don't even need to talk about it. I don't know why this is the case. Martin Necas is 48% rostered on Yahoo, which is stupid. Like, he had 2 goals and 2 assists in the 4-3 win over Tampa on Saturday, including 6 shots. He's got goals in 3-6 games now. He's playing on the top line with Aho and Nino. He's on the top power play, at least with Trocheck out. Trocheck might return soon, but still, like, Necas is having a huge breakout season. He's got 28 points in 30 games now. This is a guy who should be rostered in like 100% of leagues, in my opinion, or like 90, like he's getting points almost every game. I don't know how shallow these leagues are that half of them don't have Necas rostered, but if you're in one of those leagues, you might be in a clown league. So don't let that be the case and go grab Martin Necas.
Absolutely. 77-point pace, as you mentioned, with his huge production lately. And he's a guy who I kind of expected to be not a big shooter. So to be someone who is capable of, 60 or more points and not doing a whole lot for you in the shots on goal category, but he's over 2 shots a game so far this season. And thanks as always to Frozen Tools for having that information just right at my fingertips when I need it. And playing on that top unit looks great. He hasn't been in bad deployment for a long, long time. So I like what the Hurricanes see in him and how they keep using him in good situations. And 6 shots against Tampa, I believe that was a season high for him. And that's a new trick up his sleeve. So Martin Necas should absolutely be rostered in all formats. I'll throw out another guy who I think should be rostered in all formats. Actually, I have a few. I'm just going to lump these guys together. They're not quite 48%, but at 43%, well, I already mentioned Clayton Keller. Jacob Voracek, we mentioned last episode, as the most underrated 70-point player in the NHL. I know he's not exciting. Like, he's playing with Oscar Lindblom and Nolan Patrick, and he's like, his time on ice has gone down. So there are flags, but probably worth rostering in more than half of all Yahoo leagues. And then 2 other names that I'll throw out there at 43% are Kyle Palmieri, who just has not been having a great time this season. He did score his 7th goal in 32 games this year tonight against Boston, which is very lovely and nice, and I'm happy for him. And I just feel like he's deserved better than what he's gotten so far, because Palmieri's numbers under the hood are some of the best in his career, but he's seen career worst production thanks to a career low 5-on-5 shooting percentage, which is at 7% compared to his usual 11.5%, or his previous worst 9.5%. And Palmieri's also seeing a career low 5-on-5 on ice shooting percentage down below 6%. And that's one reason why he's pacing for just 41 points this year. We didn't expect huge things from him, especially once Taylor Hall had gone his separate ways, but I still would have expected at least 50 to 55 points from Palmieri. He's also only pacing for 13 power play points. That'd be his lowest total since coming to New Jersey from Anaheim in 2015-16. Pacing for just 13, like I said, but usually we've been able to expect 20 power play points from Palmieri in a season. I see room for growth from Palmieri, but that's all to say. I've also seen it for a while, and I'm actually really concerned looking at his game log right now. 4 consecutive games where he's played fewer than 15 minutes. 2 of them, he's been a shade under 14 minutes. So I don't know what the deal is. I'm not sure what the plan for Palmieri is, but I do know that he's played better than the 41-point pace he's had so far. And I would love to see him finally get some puck luck to turn those fortunes around.
Yeah, I like Palmieri. I actually traded for him recently in one of my leagues, so hopefully he'll be able to bounce back a little bit. I like that goal today, but yeah, the ice time is a little concerning. He's an unrestricted free agent, so he might be another person who gets traded at the trade deadline and goes somewhere else. And I would imagine that would probably be worse for him, but I guess if you're saying his ice time is down, maybe it could end up better. Like I heard Boston as a candidate, they need that second line right winger, but obviously that's not a great place for you to get a lot of points for fantasy because you're not going to be on the top power play and not playing on the top line. Okay, so I'll give you a guy that we could just talk about quickly because you're going to say he's too boring. Jared Spurgeon is down at 19% roster. So you were talking about potentially having a replacement for Aaron Ekblad and Eric Carlson. We're saying here in the chat that K-Townie City said that Carlson and San Jose have a great playoff schedule for your fantasy leagues. So yeah, you could replace Ekblad with Carlson if you need a defenseman. But I would maybe suggest, and I hate saying this, but I feel like Jared Spurgeon is someone I might have a little bit more faith in at this point. Maybe just I'm feeling burned by Eric overall. But Spurgeon's like on pace for his worst ever season. He only has 9 points in 31 games for a 24-point pace. He's usually a good bet for a 40+ point pace. He started to pick it up a little bit, 3 points in his last 3 games, including a couple goals versus Anaheim. Minnesota still has a lot of games to go. If you recall, they, had all those canceled games when everyone was on the COVID list, or I should say postponed games. So I just think I don't see why Spurgeon can't for the rest of the season be like what he was for the past 2-3 seasons, right around a 40-point defenseman. I think right now he's fallen to be more people are rostering him as if he's only a 30 to 35-point defenseman. I think he can do a little bit better. So again, not a home run swing here, but I think he's a solid guy. He's available in most of the leagues. So probably in your league, if you need a D, you could do worse.
A very Palmieri-like choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Spurgeon. It's somebody who's underperformed all season and should be doing better, but there's he should have been doing better for a long time now. And there's no sign of this big turnaround coming. It's nice to see him score twice against Anaheim the other night. But I guess when he did that, I thought back to when we talked about Matt Dumba being injured and whether this meant more opportunity for anyone. I still, looking at the numbers since then, I think that bears out. I don't think Spurgeon has any more opportunity now with Dumba out than before, but he should need more opportunity to be doing better than he's done. So definitely someone to just keep on your watch list for now. And then if you need defense at the right moment, you can go out and grab Jared Spurgeon. I'm looking for the segues, Elon, to move from Jared Spurgeon onto someone else. I'm missing one. So I'm just going to go, you're the Sultan of segue. So that's your forte. I'll leave that to you. I thought, honestly, when I talked about Brock Nelson, I thought I was setting you up for a really great segue to go to someone in Long Island as well, who is 12% rostered. And that's Oliver Wahlstrom, who has 5 goals in his last 8 games, plus 2 assists for 7 points in his last 8. And those 5 goals are coming on 19 shots in his last 8 games. So while that does add up to a 25% shooting percentage, he's at least taken 2.5 shots per game in this stretch. He's also pretty well entrenched in that Isles top 9 where nobody really sticks out. I guess beyond Matt Barzal is getting really fantastic deployment, but he's playing with Pajot and Beauvillier on the second power play, which isn't terribly exciting, but he did see 17 and a half minutes in his last game, which was a season high. And he's just been doing really well for a couple weeks now. Actually, almost a month now, if I'm really looking into it. So Oliver Wahlstrom still only 12% rostered as his opportunity continues to increase and the points continue to come. Seems to me like a guy whose numbers should be rising.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. Like, he's an easy one. He's way too low roster for someone producing like he is. So definitely go grab him if you're in a league where you want to jump on a hot player. I don't know what the Islanders are doing with these lines. Leo Komarov has lately been playing on the top line with Barzal and Everly, which is wild. I never expected that. So that's another guy you could like jump on for a stream while it lasts. If your league counts hits, only if your league counts hits.
Okay.
Because you're going to have, he got an assist recently. I feel like he'll get a point every 2-3 games just because he's playing with Barzal, and then he'll give you those hits. But also, I don't think it's going to last for a long time. Obviously, I like Oliver Wahlstrom better.
By the same logic, you could also go for Matt Martin, who has, I think, better hit numbers and is on the top power play.
That's insane. I don't know how that's the case.
It's insane. They love Komarov and Matt Martin over in Long Island.
All right, so I'm basically done, Brian. I got one more name here. It's another home run. Pavel Buchnevich is only 72% rostered, and he's been like amazing. He should be higher, but like, I don't know how much higher.
Rostered?
72%.
Oh, but we're supposed to be going below 50%.
No, I never said that.
Oh, well, that's how I operated my whole list.
All right, well, let's keep that out of the show. That's boring. Okay. I got one last guy. Pavel Buchnevich. I said 70% rostered. Buchnevich has 17 points in his last 14 games, up to 31 points in 33 games on the season now. So it's like, again, kind of like when I was talking about Martin Necas, it's like, I don't know what people are waiting for when someone's like over a point per game for like the last month. So I think these are probably just inactive leagues, or I don't know what it is, but obviously he was an easy guy for me to put on the list. And Brian, that's it for me for the players who I think, that's my top 10.
Okay. I'm going to throw out a couple more who both play for the same team and both would have been great segues from Jared Spurgeon and Kyle Palmieri as guys who should be turning things around, but they aren't, but I still believe they will. They both play for Dallas, believe it or not, that fantasy wasteland of talent. And their names are, I'll start with Denis Gurianov at 17% rostered. He's the guy who has spent the most time on my watch list He's the guy who has spent the most time on my watch list this season without me having added him, like at all. I like everything I see from Gurianov except for what's on the actual score sheet. So I'm just waiting, like, please, Dennis, show me something. And on Saturday night, he had a goal on 4 shots and his time on ice was back above 18 minutes for just the 4th time in a month. And to me, that was a sign like, okay, now's my moment. I'm going to go grab him. And of course, somebody else already beat me to it in my cupful division. So not only on my watch list, clearly, but I think he's going to turn things around from his very sad season that he's having so far. That started off so promising, right? I don't know if you remember Gurianov's start. He started the year with 7 points in 4 games, but has just 9 points in 28 games since to be on a 41-point pace. And some of that is because of his own 5.4 shooting percentage. Some of that is because of Dallas's 5-on-5 on-ice shooting percentage of 6.6%, while Gurianov is on the ice. But he's seen an overall bump of 2 minutes per game over last season at 5-on-5. And to me, I'm looking at everything I'm seeing from Gurianov and being like, this is a breakout season gone off the rails because of variance and also because of being on Dallas. Probably I've got to take my
my God, Brian, you hate
there. So he's a rare Dallas forward that I think I'd be interested in owning right now. Okay. That I'd be interested in owning right now. That I'd be interested in rostering right now, but he's not on the top power play. So that would be a reason to still be like, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. But you know who is on the top power play in Dallas? Jason Robertson, who is 19% rostered. He's up to 13 points in his last 12 games, 2 goals and 11 assists, 36 shots in that 12 game span for Jason Robertson. So he's only shooting 5.6% while collecting 13 points in 12 games. So I might even say he's cold on the goal scoring, which maybe offsets the heat on the assists that he's picking up. But Robertson has 3 or more shots in 8 of his last 9 games, which is just so nice. And he's getting top line ice time, top power play time. I would roster him before Guryanov, but both of them into me.
Okay. Did you say int to you?
I said
no one knows what that means.
Okay. Okay, fine.
But both of them
interest me for sure.
Okay, yeah, Brian, it's really funny how you're still hating on Dallas. You know that Joe Pavelski is a point per game guy still. Like, he's getting points every single game. I feel like I think I'm at a point where I'm happy to say that I think Pavelski is great and you want the player on his line. And right now, like you said, it is definitely Jason. Like you said, it is definitely Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz when he is healthy, which is only every second game or so. So that's a hotline that I want the most. You know what I've come to decide about Dallas? By the way, you said Jason Robertson as if it's like a big surprise. Like, this is a guy who's been on a good run now for a while, and like short shifts have been all over him. And I've come to realize Dallas is just a team where every single year there's going to be a new player to be excited about. Like 2 seasons ago, like Rupe Hintz came out of the scene. I remember we were all like, oh my God, Rupe Hintz, look at this guy. And then last year was Dennis Guryanov. Now this year is Jason Robertson. I'm really curious to see who it's going to be next year. But in the meantime, Brian, we grabbed him in our joint league over at the Fantasy Hockey Trades Invitational. And I was really surprised in such a deep league to get such a hot player on the top line and top power play producing like this. So yeah, Guryanov, sure, he's okay. He's playing on a line with Jamie Benn, which is not that exciting at this point in Ben's career. Jason Robertson, 100%, I would be grabbing him in most leagues.
Yeah, for sure. And I have, that's great. Actually, why don't you just move on?
Okay. And okay, with that, let's go to the other side of the coin and some players that we expect their Yahoo percent roster to go down as the season continues. So Brian, I guess it should be my turn since you just went, and I'm going to start. That's what I just went. And I'm going to start with someone who there's like a lot of these are going to be sad. Like, it's like players who, like, I get why they're so high, but also they really shouldn't be at this point. I could expect them to continue to fall. And I've got to start in Columbus with Patrick Laine, still 88% rostered. And I think it's literally just,
Elon,
yeah.
You're like still banging your desk or something a lot.
I don't know. I'm not banging. Like, what am I banging?
I don't know. I'm just hearing like still 88% rostered. I don't know. Maybe it's your chair rocking. I guess just be mindful.
Okay. Are people in the chat? I'd be curious to know if anyone else is hearing the banging. But okay, so still
88. You can say still 88% rostered.
Okay, let me just start that whole thing over then.
Sorry.
So let's go to the other side of the coin and talk about some players who we think are rostered in too many Yahoo leagues. We think these numbers are going to go down in the rest of the season. And I'm going to have to start. This is going to be sad. We've already talked about it a little bit earlier on in the year, but at this point, it's kind of crazy that Patrick Laine of the Columbus Blue Jackets is still rostered in 80% of leagues. He's doing nothing. He's like Erik Karlsson at this point. Like, he has 2 assists in his last 8 games now after going pointless again today in the loss to Calvin Pickard and the Detroit Red Wings. He's hardly taking any shots on goal, 11 shots in his last 7 games going into today. I'm checking now. Wow, 1 shot. Thanks for showing up, Patrick, for your game today against Detroit. People are holding him because of his name value. I feel like if he was dropped in the cupful, I as someone who's like fighting and needs to win every single matchup, I don't think I'd be adding him, to be honest, which is crazy. But I think you should. Yeah, Shams is asking in the chat, am I allowed to drop Laine? I think so. What are you waiting for? He's not getting traded. Maybe he'll get traded in the offseason. He's not getting traded at the trade deadline, I don't think. So this is, I think, it. Like, Brian, do you have any reason for optimism aside from the fact that he used to be a 30, 40 goal scorer?
No, Patrick Laine also headlines my list as the guy whose percent rostered ship I expect to go down from 88% to, I think he should be owned below 50%. Honestly, the way I see him right now is, like you said, he's only there because of his name value. I wonder if that's like Phil Kessel territory, right? Because he's had these hot streaks too. When Laine came to Columbus, he started with 10 points in 10 games, 6 goals and 4 assists, but had only taken 18 shots, so had a high shooting percentage and wasn't even shooting a lot. And that not shooting a lot has been a theme for Laine. His shot rates have been cut in half at 5-on-5 compared at 5-on-5 compared to his last couple years in Winnipeg. And his expected goals rates too have also been very bad, cut in half to a number officially at 0.27 expected goals per 60 minutes, which you don't need to know expected goals deeply, because I'm just going to tell you that's a very bad number. That's not a number I expect to see from a goal scorer in terms of how dangerous and high danger their shot attempts have been. Laine had also, like, he's been putting up these numbers, seeing decent opportunities in Columbus. Like, his ice time was fine, but now recently it's been slashed. He saw less than 15 minutes in his last game against Detroit. And if you want to try and defend Laine, you could say that the variance hasn't been kind to him, which is true, but he's not doing well at the things he can control himself either. And here's an example of how. Patrik Laine, 4 points in his last 15 games. So 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 15 games, 1 goal on 32 shots, which is a 3.1% shooting percentage. That's bad. I expect Laine to shoot better than that. But you know what else is bad? Only taking 4 shots in your last 4 games played, Patrik Laine. That's what else is bad. So I hope you see what I'm getting at there with that example. Laine deserves better, but better is marginal considering his shot rates and locations. This could still work, Patrik Laine, as an NHL player, as a productive NHL player, but he has yet to see sustainable success in Columbus. And I just don't know how great the odds are for him seeing that this season, considering they don't play a system built for offensive upside. I imagine most people are just going to keep growing more and more impatient with Laine as weeks become more critical, and I won't blame them. I think you can drop him. In fact, Elon, I'm curious at 88% rostered, if that, like, I'd like to see the roller coaster. Like, how many times has he been dropped and added? Are managers adding him to their rosters, getting impatient after a week, and then someone else is like, okay, my turn to take a chance on him? That's my only way that I can probably explain that Laine is still 88% rostered, because someone's like, I'll try him out.
Okay, but have you seen that? Like, how many leagues are you in? Have you seen Patrik Laine dropped in any of them?
Yeah, I guess not. So maybe
like, I'm in 5.
It.
Yeah, I'm in 5 leagues and I haven't seen Patrik Laine dropped in any of them. So I don't think that's it. I just think people are holding on, hoping that he'll bounce back, just like I was hoping for Mika Zibanejad and Taylor Hall. And at this point, I'm ready to say goodbye to Taylor Hall. And I think people should be equally likely ready to say goodbye to Patrik Laine.
I am with you. I'm going to knock someone else on this list out just because we've already talked about him. So let's just formally name Erik Karlsson at 63% rostered as somebody whose percent rostered should go down. Like, this is us telling you, the hosts of Keeping Karlsson do not keep Karlsson the rest of the season. We're not going to ever change the name of our show. That's not in the cards. We still respect the glory days of Erik Karlsson, but we are not in them. He has a 31-point pace this season. And at 5-on-5, things have been rough for him variance-wise. His IPP is below 20% when it's normally been 15%. When it's normally been 50%, while Erik Karlsson has been a shark. He has no goals on 39 shots, when maybe he should have a couple, but frankly, that's the only space I see for positive regression. And it's not a big space. It's like Patrik Laine. Everything else looks pretty bad, even though he's not getting a lot of luck on top of it. I don't see even things going well, meaning an Erik Karlsson that's consistently above a 40-point pace. His power play deployment is fine, and he's been very meh with it. So you mentioned you added Parayko for Erik Karlsson, and I like Parayko's peripheral floor and maybe 35, 40-point production over Erik Karlsson, who you're looking at 40. I'll stretch it and say maybe 45-point production, but with no floor of peripherals that he's really contributing with. So that is why I don't think Erik Karlsson is worth rostering in 63% of Yahoo leagues.
Yeah, like the counterpoint is like he has upside, sure. Like he's still like on the power play, takes shots, and apparently San Jose has this really good playoff schedule. So take a look. But like whatever, don't get mad at us if you drop him and then he heats up, because he is Erik Karlsson. He can potentially do it. So can Patrik Laine, I should say. But at this point, if you have to make some tough calls, he's someone who I would consider letting go of. So Brian, now I've got a call for a super shallow league. So I'm saying most people shouldn't drop this guy. I actually just think that like no one should drop him, but I think his rosterage is still too high. He's at 94%. I expect it to go down. That's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins over on the Edmonton Oilers. So he's not having such a great season, right? He has 26 points in 35 games for a 61-point pace. His last couple of years, he was at like a 77 and 69-point pace. So we're talking a big dip. And I think his percent rosterage is still like kind of based on what he's done the last couple of years. Plus, Like if that was it and he was just like not producing as much as previous years, I wouldn't even say anything. But the fact that the Oilers ran lines on Saturday with RNH away from both McDavid and Draisaitl really concerns me. And of course, there's no way to know. Like Tippett might change it back, but again, if I'm fighting, like right now, I don't know how interested I am in a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins playing on the second line with Yamamoto and Cahoon, while McDavid, Draisaitl, and Puljujarvi are all together. Like obviously, Nugent-Hopkins has the power play, so he's still going to get some points. But this like 60-ish point pace that he's on this season, that that seems pretty realistic, especially if he's like not playing with McDavid or Draisaitl at even strength. I think you shouldn't be expecting any more than that. So yeah, 94% seems high for someone that gives me a lot of concerns. In Saturday's game, by the way, no points and no shots for RNH when he was on this line with Yamamoto and Cahoon. So yeah, Yamamoto, by the way, is another guy who like forget about. We've already said that. And obviously until the lines change, and RNH I'm concerned about.
Yeah, Nugent-Hopkins is back in that familiar territory where he's not playing with a stud, which is not to take away from Nugent-Hopkins and how he still manages with that top power play time, a 60-point pace. But maybe that's all you should expect so long as he's not playing with McDavid or Draisaitl, which has been the case for about 7 of his last 10 games. I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl are going to be attached at the hip the rest of the way. I just don't think Edmonton is deep enough to really make that a viable long-term option. I could see them like going back and forth with that idea the rest of the season. I think Nugent-Hopkins, what'd you say, 94% rostered?
Yes.
Like, so in what? Like you said, this is a super shallow league where you're dropping him and giving up and saying, yeah, he's not going to play with McDavid or Draisaitl, or I should say McDavid because he rarely plays with Draisaitl the rest of the season. Okay.
I'm more like I'm saying I think it's going to go down. I'm not saying like I'm suggesting our listeners to drop him, but I think like there's a prediction that I think is going to come true.
But he's still rosterable in so many leagues where like as a 60 to 65 point player.
Yeah, I guess I just see other players like Elias Lindholm is rostered in like 95%. Okay, so that's not a good example. Sean Monahan at 65%. I wonder if Monahan and RNH are like similar. I know Monahan, actually the reason why I'm bringing up these flames is because I have them next on my list. But yeah, I guess like compared to other players, he seems high compared to the people who are lower than him that I have more confidence in. So that's why I have him there. Like maybe my advice is more like to try to trade him. If you can't drop him, if your league is too deep to not drop someone like RNH, which is most leagues, then maybe you want to try to figure out a way to offload him, or you can hold on and hope that he gets back on a good line, but he's not having a great year. And now with the lines shaken up for now, I'm not excited about him on the next game. Like if it was a weekly league and I'm deciding who to start for next week, I don't think I'd be picking him if I had other options that I thought were in better spots.
Right, unless you see him back on with McDavid. I mean, he hasn't, he has been so cold lately. I don't know. I'm
saying 61 point pace on the season, so he's well down below a lot of people he's ranked ahead of.
Okay, but he also has 6 points in his last 8 games.
Yeah, but now he's off the top line. He's on a line with Yamamoto and Cahoon. So I don't expect that to continue. This is a prediction, Brian. So I could be wrong. I'm not making my predictions fully on the past. I'm looking at the current situation. This is my call. You could disagree. That's allowed. So Brian says Nugent-Hopkins is going to get back to being the 70-point guy that you drafted.
That's not even what I'm saying. I'm just saying he still has value. Of
course. He's 94%. That's the exercise. I'm trying to
adjust your expectations.
Yeah, like I could have just said to only look at players who are 30% rostered and less, and then like told you that I think they're going to go down. I'm looking at someone who's high up that I think should also go down.
All right, cool. Nice pick for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
You hate it.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to pick somebody who is far, far, far more obvious and someone we've mentioned. I know there was some chat about him in our Discord server, our patrons only Discord server. By the way, keepingkarlson.com/patron if you want to support the show and get a bunch of cool perks plus extra access to Elon and I as a thank you. Mike Hoffman at 72% rostered. Hoffman's owners are snoozing hard. Right, he's on a 50-point pace, playing on the third line, second power play unit, not being hit terribly hard by variance, and he's just been stone cold for half the season now. He started the year on fire, 14 points in 17 games, but has just 4 points in 16 games since that run, and I don't see much reason that he's going to be able to turn this around. Clearly, St. Louis doesn't think they need him to be their power play shooter, which is funny, right? Because here's your reminder that Mike Hoffman has paced for 25, 35, 21, and 27 power play points in his last 4 seasons. And the Blues are like, okay, whatever. Like we have other guys who can do that. So that's great. And I guess they want David Perron, who's doing a fantastic job as the trigger man on the power play, to continue doing that. And they don't see a need for Mike Hoffman. And because of that, I think you should just let him go. And now it's like, okay, Erik Karlsson, value tank since leaving Ottawa. Mike Hoffman, same thing, although he kept it up in Florida. Matt Duchene, his value was down. Ryan Dzingel, his value went nowhere and then has come back to semi-relevance. Now he's back in Ottawa. All these guys crush it. So they leave Ottawa. It's really interesting. So don't go for guys who have been traded from the Ottawa Senators.
Mark Stone.
Is the moral of the story. Except Mark Stone. He's amazing.
I probably could, Mika's Zibanejad's pretty good.
Okay, yeah. All right. It was not a good point that I made, so let's not dwell on it.
All right, fair enough. By the way, Mike Hoffman healthy scratched today for the Blues. So if you had more reason to be concerned, I would not expect him to, obviously he's not going to be healthy scratched the rest of the season, but he doesn't look like he's in line anytime soon to get prominent deployment. He doesn't seem to have the faith of the coaching staff. So yeah, definitely, I think you can let go of Mike Hoffman. That's an easy one, Brian. I was trying to have some challenge here and pick some good players who I think are still going to go down. So let me do another one that you're going to hate, I think.
Okay, try me. I want to like it. I just want to be clear. I want to like it. I just didn't get with it, but I'm trying.
Let's do one now. Another player who I don't think is bad, but Jonathan Marchessault at 84%. I think that he's someone that I would be ready to flip, not drop unless, whatever. But he was on a run of 7 points in 7 games recently. So that's really gotten him up to his 59-point pace on the year. So yeah, overall, he's sitting at a 59-point pace, which is the exact same pace he's had for the last couple of years. He's just he had that one amazing breakout year, the first year that Vegas existed. Then since then, just a solid 60-point guy, basically. This year, he was less than that until a recent run, but he's now pointless in his last 2 games. So I feel like the ceiling, to me, I feel like his ceiling is a 60-point guy because that's just what he's been forever. But he's seen for a lot of the season, he was below that. He got a bump in deployment with Pacioretty out for a couple of games. He was on the top power play, but he's off that. So I just feel like it's kind of boring. 84%. Again, it's for me doing this exercise, I was looking at the players around him. And to me, he sort of stood out as someone that why is he so high compared to some of these other guys? So I don't know. Marshall, I'm not saying he's going to go down to 50, but I could see him going down to 70% or 75% by the end of the year. I think he's going to have a bit of a dip.
Marchessault didn't officially make my list, but he did catch my eye. The reason he didn't actually land on my list was because I loved his shot totals in the month of March. Over a span of 13 games, not counting the last 2, because he's only got 2 shots in his last 2 games. But in the first 13 games of March, he had 53 shots on goal, including games against LA and St. Louis back-to-back, where he had 15 shots on goal, an 8-shot night and a 7-shot night. So that's why he escaped my list of players whose percent rostered should drop. I agree that you shouldn't get excited about Marchessault being above a 60-point player. This is who he is. He's been pretty much exactly this going on 3 years now. He's been pretty hot at 5-on-5, but cold on the power play. And I think those have washed each other out to get sort of a fair expectation for him. But if you had to ask me plus or minus 60 points or even 59 points, I would go minus. So that's where I'm at for Jonathan Marchessault. So I guess this just comes down again to what is worth rostering in your format. Is a 60-point player who can go off for crazy shot totals lately still worth rostering?
I mean, on one hand, you say he could go off for crazy shot totals. He's also had a lot of 1 and 2 shot games recently. Yeah. So two sides of the coin.
Yeah, well, the 1-shot games are sandwiched between 5 and 7-shot games. So I'm not that concerned. His shots are really, really great. He's averaging 3 shots, and he's always been a shooter. He wasn't shooting a whole lot to start the season, and he seems to have remedied that lately, which is reason for me to be okay, I'll keep him. So I hear you, Elon, though. If you look at him amongst the other 84% rostered players, he might stick out like a bit of a sore thumb. Here's another Vegas player who I'm going to put ready on my, I feel like you might be able to guess it.
Okay, let me guess. Sure. Alex Tuck.
No.
I don't know. Then Riley Smith.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not going to guess it because I'm going to the crease. I'm going to Marc-Andre Fleury, who is 96% rostered. And yet he is he deserved it. right? I think you probably started the season, 50% drafted or maybe 60% drafted, but now he is 96% roster thanks to some huge stellar play in Vegas while Robin Lehner was out. But now Robin Lehner is back. And since Robin Lehner has been healthy, Fleury seems to not be doing so well. And I think that leaves the door open. We talked about Lehner's return in a recent show and saying, we probably think the Golden Knights are going to want to have both their goalies having seen some recent action as they head into the playoffs. But Fleury is giving them reason to maybe look a little even more intently at playing Robin Lehner, because Fleury has just an .896 save percentage in his last 8 games. He's still won 5 of them thanks to some really great run support. And of course, he had a couple good starts in there too, but he has not been as consistently fantastic as he's been all season long. So I think, especially with the 50-50 timeshare coming, that Marc-Andre Fleury managers should probably be looking to move on, because he's not going to be as valuable in a timeshare as he was before, even if he does put up amazing numbers, which he hasn't been doing for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know if we're in this 50-50 timeshare yet. He got the start yesterday versus Colorado when it could have gone to Robin Lehner because Fleury had played the previous game, and you could say, and he led only 2 goals. That was a good call, I guess, by the coach, and they got a win. He's had some tough competition, recently, that bad game against Colorado where he led in 5 goals. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it might be more 60-40 and not 50-50, to be honest, which, I agree with you that maybe he won't be able to keep up these amazing numbers he's had all year, but I'll be surprised actually if his percent rostered goes down. I can't just imagine any league where he'll be droppable, but I guess it's possible.
I can tell you, since Robin Lehner has been dressing, it's been Fleury, then Lehner, then Fleury, then Lehner.
And then Fleury went twice, though. Fleury played 2 games in a row.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. You did just mention that. So they started 50-50, then they went Fleury. Okay. Yeah. So
we'll see.
96% rostered, even for a 2/3 starter. I guess a 2/3 starter that's setting the world on fire, or just doing really reliably well. Sure. But 96% seems pretty high.
Okay. That's fun. I don't really disagree, but I do think that it's that's not that different than what I said about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's a 94 and you really hated that pick, but I think that Hopkins is a better chance. We should make a bet. Oh, do you want to make a bet for the bet board right now? Who's going to go down by more between Hopkins versus Fleury?
Done.
Okay. Mark it down. All right.
I'll mark it down somewhere where I'll find it within the next 3 months and put it on the bet board.
All right. So next, let me do this one. I think is pretty easy. I think you'll agree. So we're going a little lower here. Yanni Gourde at 62% rostered. He's super hot right now. That's why it's shot up. He had a 5-game goal streak that was broken in the 4-3 loss to Carolina yesterday. But here's basically all I need to know when I'm trying to decide if I think someone's going to be able to keep something up like this. He's playing on the 3rd line with Coleman and Gaudreau, which is a shutdown line. He's got only 9 shots in his last 5 games. That's it. That's all I need to know. I know he's not going to keep up getting a lot of goals because he's not shooting a lot and he's not playing on a big offensive line. So Yanni Gourde had a great run. If you got in on it, congratulations. I know Jeff Good got in on it when he played me last week in the couple. It was very annoying. But now Yanni Gourde, he's 62% now. I have a feeling next time we record, it'll be down to 52%, maybe settle in around 40-45% is my guess.
Yeah, I am totally with you. 5 goals on 13 shots for Yanni Gourde. And he's a guy, if you follow through the year, and Tampa's also had a really good schedule the last couple of weeks, which I think has bumped up his percent rostered numbers too. One of those guys that gets added and dropped so often because of these hot streaks that he's made his name on. So good on you, Yanni Gourde, for getting hot again. And we'll see you again the next time you do. But I'm not going to hold you while I wait for that to happen. All right. So you've mentioned Gourde at, what was he, 62%? My closest player to that is 63%. And it's Joel Farabee, who was the extended version of Yanni Gourde for the first half of the season. And we warned. We said regression's coming, and it wasn't even a hot take. It was clearly it was going to come. Farabee could not keep up that insane start he had to the season that helped him pretty much. Remember, he started the season with, what was it, a 4-point night, and everybody just raced to get him. And then he went quiet, and then he started doing it again. And all these multi-point nights followed. And it's all added up to a 69-point pace, 27 points in 32 games for Joel Farabee. But his best days of the season, I am so sure, are behind him, which is why Joel Farabee at 63% rostered is likely going down the rest of the season. He's down to just 5 points in his last 10 games, only 16 shots, in those 10 games. And this is just chicks coming home to roost for Joel Farabee's production. He is still playing, like he has decent deployment. He's with Claude Giroux and Kevin Hayes at 5-on-5. He's on the power play, the second unit with Claude Giroux, which is still decent. But a really good illustration of exactly why we can't expect great things to continue from Farabee is that even with this cold streak, his shooting percentage is now down to 20% on the season, and his points participation rate is down to 80% on the season, down to both those numbers after a recent cold spell, where usually like that's as high as you can go. That's just where he's fallen over the last 10 games, which means like they were sky high to begin with. So this is not a hot take. This is clearly a player who is not going to keep up what he was doing. And if you're hanging on, waiting for the next Farabee renaissance, I wouldn't. Like, I'd just leave him behind and like be like, oh, I wish I held him for that 3-point game, because it's going to happen again this season, I imagine. But I don't think it's going to happen consistently enough for him to be worth rostering over these final weeks.
I don't know. Like, I think 62% sounds about right, to be honest, for someone playing on the top line with Giroux. Maybe it should be a little lower. Like, if he was dropped in a couple, I think I would strongly consider him, since he's shown that he's capable of having big games, which I like. I like a big game impact guy on my fantasy team who I could, like, you know, if I'm behind by like a lot, he has the potential to have a multi-point game because we've seen him do it. I know that he's like gone cold, and I definitely don't think he's like a 70-point guy or whatever you said that he can be, but I think he could still be like a 55, 60-point guy, which is worth rostering in a lot of leagues, according to Yahoo. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I think that's a little high. I think my analogy would be maybe someone like Jordan Kyrou as a Farabee alike over the rest of the season, and Kairou's only 35% rostered.
Yeah, I guess the thing with Kyrou is he's gotten bad deployment. Like last week we talked about how Kyrou got onto a line with Ryan O'Reilly and Perron, I believe it was, and I feel like you were the one who like poured the cold water, as you should have. That who knows if that's even going to last. And like today, St. Louis is playing, and they're running with Perron, Shen, Thomas, then Tarasenko, Schwartz, and O'Reilly, and then Kyrou's playing with Sanford and Bozak. So we're seeing from Kyrou that like he was able to go on a good run when he was playing with good line mates, but now he's back in the bottom six. So Joel Farabee's still playing with Giroux and Hayes. So I think he's in a better spot than Kyrou. I'd rather have Farabee right now.
Fair point. So, but maybe not 30% more rostered to that extent. I don't know. That's my case.
Yeah, that's fair. Like if Kyrou was dropped into a couple right now, I wouldn't even think of adding him. And if Farabee was dropped, I'd be like, how much fab should I put on him? So I guess it depends.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be that into him.
All right, so let me ask you about another flyer then, since we're on them. I'm not this one, like I put on the list just because I mainly wanted to hear your thoughts. So Kevin Hayes, who's playing with Joel Farabee, is sitting at 47%. He's only got 3 points in his last 9 games. So he did have a nice 1 goal and 1 assist game in that 8-3 loss to the Rangers on Thursday. So it's nice for him, not nice for the rest of the team. He's pacing for 57 points still on this season, which is good, but he's generally not like a 57-point guy. Like he's usually closer to like a 50-point guy. That's what he's been for the last couple of years. So my sense is that this cold streak is like kind of what you should have expected. And I feel like he'll continue to be like this, like half point per game, like maybe 50-point guy going forward. So I'm just curious to get your take on Kevin Hayes. Is he someone that you're like super excited about and you like Kevin Hayes, or is he someone like similar to Joel Farabee at this point?
No, I've always liked Kevin Hayes. I think he's a really quality player who's never gotten quite the opportunity to show his best offensive self. You said he's been a 49-point guy the last couple of years. You're wrong. He was a 64-point player a couple of years back when he split time between the Jets, but was mostly with the Rangers that season. And he was that year's 2C solution for the Jets. He's good. I like Kevin Hayes a lot. His opportunity is higher right now than it has been before, both in terms of power play deployment and total time on ice. And I don't think 57 points pace the rest of the way is too much to ask. So if Kevin Hayes were dropped and Joel Farabee were both dropped, I would be more interested in Kevin Hayes.
I think I'd be more interested in Joel Farabee, but okay, I guess you.
So is this another bet? Hayes versus Farabee rest of season?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I think like clearly you and I have a slightly different thing. Like you definitely want to go more for the guys that are like, you know, the guys you've seen produce for like a couple years now. And Farabee clearly still has to prove it to you for longer. He had a good start to the year. Now he's slowed down. Kevin Hayes is just boring to me. Like I feel like
he's boring. Like he does go cold. Like this is the knock on Kevin Hayes. He goes cold. He goes missing for stretches, but then he usually comes back. So I guess you could describe Farabee in a pretty similar way, except the usually comes back part, which is like what you just said. He hasn't proven that to me, that he usually comes back. But Kevin Hayes, I know he usually does.
All right, fair enough. So Brian, who do you have next? Because I just went with Hayes.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Dallas, where I found two guys who were under rostered, and I have two guys who are over rostered in Dallas. And one of them, like, I don't know, Elon, if my list is just victory laps of guys that we've warned about long enough to be like, see, like he's still rostered on this many teams.
It's just, please don't say Joe Pavelski.
No, I'm not saying Joe Pavelski. Don't worry. I'm saying Jamie Benn at 73% rostered. He has this subpar 5-on-5 on ice shooting percentage, which is usually a flag, but it's been this way for 3 years now. And I think it's partly because of him to blame and partly because of the system he plays in. Like, and Jamie Benn, remember at the start of the season when everybody in Dallas was like going off because that crazy hot Dallas power play? Jamie Benn was not in on that. Just 2 power play points in 28 games, even though he's been mostly on the top power play, where he hasn't been very involved in goals scored. He hasn't been shooting a lot, just 12 power play shots, no goals on them. He's not in as much a shooting role on the power play as he has been in the past. Maybe he'll pick some of those power play points back up, but he had a 56-point pace in 2018-19. Then Jamie Benn followed that up with a 47-point pace last season. And anyone this committed to him in 2021 to still be rostering him, I think is just not facing up to who Jamie Benn has become, which is a 50-ish point guy on a team that struggles to score anyway. So 73% roster for Jamie Benn is just too high.
Oh yeah, I agree for sure. It's like we've already said about like Patrick Laine and Mike Hoffman and Erik Karlsson. At least they've like only been bad this year. Jamie Benn was already bad last year. We got a tweet recently from someone who was like, "What's wrong with Ben?" I was like, "Did you watch last year? Like he's the same. He might even be worse. He had a 56-point pace. He had a 46-point pace last season. Currently, he's sitting at a 49-point pace. I expect him to fall below last year by the end of the year. So that's my current opinion of Jamie Benn. Okay, Brian, let's continue with the disappointment train. I guess, we had all the good news at the start of the guys we think will be better.
Oh, yeah. But before we do that, the train continues rolling in Dallas. I'll just go really quickly and mention Miro Heiskanen at 87% roster, which I don't get. I feel like this is just from like having a lot of buzz coming from his playoff performance last season. A lot of people drafted him and just assumed he's a set and forget guy, but Heiskanen is not a set and forget guy in most formats. He has just a 41-point pace this season. He had that, like he, unlike Jamie Benn, was one of those overperformers on the power play to start the year. And that's the only reason Heiskanen's even at this 41-point pace. And as we mentioned on the show maybe a month ago now, that power play performance has dried up for Heiskanen. He's done little to nothing there over the last little while. He has like okay shots for a defenseman, but no other peripherals. So Elon, can you help explain to me why Heiskanen, with few peripherals, not great power play deployment, and a 41-point pace, is rostered in 87% of Yahoo leagues?
That's a good question. Maybe some of them are keeper leagues. I think he's going to be like really good one day, but yeah, for 1-year leagues or like, keeper leagues where you could only keep like 4 or 5, I don't really see a reason to hold on. Like he did have 7, like I like the shots actually. They had a 7-shot game recently, lots of 3 and 4 shot games. So he's giving me, like, if I saw him in my free agency in any of my leagues, I think I would grab him just because I love these shot numbers, and he is on the top power play. So he's like got all the, he's got to me, he kind of looks like a Nick Ritchie at this point. Like I think I'd have the same call, except like they're obviously rostered very differently. But it's like, even though he's been cold, I see lots of reasons to expect him to do better, but that still doesn't explain him being like 88%. Like you said, I would have expected him to have fallen to like 50 or 40% at this point, and then I'd be able to call him as someone I expect to do better at this point. Yeah, he's like the expectation of him being better is already like baked into his percent rostered, which is kind of weird because you think at this point people will be cutting bait. So I think if he continues to be cold, that'll start falling soon. So I definitely agree with that pick.
That's a good point that he has picked up his shots lately. Yeah, that 7-shot game was today, and that brings him to 37 shots over his last 9 games, which is fantastic for a defenseman, but like not what he's been doing all season. So we'll see if that continues.
Yeah, now let's see if he can shoot better and get it to go like behind the goalie.
Well, his shooting percentage is actually, I'm just looking it up. It's actually, it's fine this season. So I don't even know if more shots is going to help him a whole lot, except, continuing to score on 5 out of every 100 shots he takes and helping fill that category for people who do roster Heiskanen.
Okay, yeah. So my next guy, another young player I've got for you, and that's Jack Hughes. He's already been falling quite a bit. I think I expect him to continue falling, right? So another pointless game today that makes him pointless in 9 of his last 10 games. He had one goal and 1 assist game versus Pittsburgh like 3 weeks ago. But aside from that, it's just nothing game in and game out. like, yeah, he's playing with Palmieri, who you said you expect to go up. So I guess if Palmieri starts doing a little better, that might be good for Jack Hughes. But I don't see why I'd be holding on to him in a 1-year league at this point, right? Like, I think that maybe next year.
Yeah, New Jersey does not seem like a great place to put up numbers, even if you're Jack Hughes, who has taken a step forward this year, but was added, I think, to a lot of teams who have probably since gone inactive because he was really hot at the start. And then any team that invested largely in him has been sorely disappointed by what Jack Hughes has had to offer since then. So I agree that he does not need to be rostered in most, many formats, especially if Kyle Palmieri isn't. Then why have Jack Hughes?
Yeah.
Okay. I think my list is pretty much exhausted. I'm going to just throw out one more name. You're just gonna, like, I don't know if this is just picking a fight. I have a bunch of goalies, okay, and I'll actually save this name for last. So I have Freddie Anderson at 92%. That should drop. Semyon Varlamov at 92%, just because we've seen Sorokin start to get some more starts lately. I'm just looking at the pattern of starts between them, and going back to like for about a month, it's been pretty much trading starts. So 92% rostered for a timeshare goalie who Varlamov, like, he's been good all season, but his last couple starts have been a little not good. So
that sounds exactly like what you said about Marc-Andre Fleury.
It's very similar to Fleury. It's very similar to Fleury. Okay, and then another goalie, Kaapo Kähkönen, who everybody thought like was in during the number one job, and then Cam Talbot's like, actually, I'm still going to get games and going to do really well in them. Kähkönen is 70% rostered. I wonder if that should drop. James Reimer at 54% rostered. I've singled him out of the three goalies in Carolina because like at some point, Mrazek is healthy and they're not going to waive Nedeljkovic. They did that last year or earlier this season and got away with it. It's not going to happen again. So they're going to have to keep three goalies, and I think Reimer is going to be the odd one out. That's my bold prediction.
Well, right. Let me update your bold prediction because there's been news. Well, no, it's just like there's been news this week, right? That the Carolina management said that they're looking to trade a goalie. And I think everyone's assuming what they mean is they're planning to trade Reimers, which means I'll bet you his percent rostered will shoot up because people always shoot up when they get traded. But also I'd expect him to be like a backup or like, 1B at best wherever he lands. So I definitely agree with you that you don't need to hold on to Reimer at this point.
And then the name that I hinted at the start, that's probably just going to start an argument, which I hope it won't, is Mike Smith at 70% rostered. 70% rostered, and the wheels are starting to fall off. I see this on a very small sample. Like, he's been better for longer than he has been bad. And Koskinen has not proven himself to be a reliable other option. But Smith is down to an .893 save percentage in his last 4 starts. 3 of those have been 909 or below. He's had one .935 gem in there against Winnipeg. The rest have been unimpressive to really bad. So I wonder if it's time for Mike Smith to finally take a breath and time for Koskinen to start getting a few more starts.
I mean, I guess we'll see. Don't forget that Mike Smith didn't play all week. Edmonton had that whole week off last week because the Montreal players were on the COVID protocol. And yeah, he was actually looking good in this game against Toronto until the third period when all of a sudden the Leafs stormed back, and the Leafs are a tough team. And now Edmonton plays Toronto tomorrow. And I'm curious if it's going to be Smith or Koskinen in net. Yeah. I think 70% seems about right to me. He still seems like the starter on Edmonton. I don't think this bad game against Toronto is going to change too much, bad period, I should say, against Toronto. So I don't know, if he was at 90, then I would definitely say it should go down, but I'm not sure how much further than 70% Mike Smith is going to drop unless he really falls off, which I know you'll be so happy to see happen and expect it to happen. I don't know how far he's going to fall off. It's still a good team. It's still a good team that you'd expect to get a win from whenever you get the start, just because of their great forwards.
In the Latin 4, I'm just rhyming off, I think the last 5 starts that Koskinen has had, one of them was bad. It was against Toronto. Stopped 7 of 10, but the others 960. This is for Koskinen: 960, 929, 929, 977, 952. So he's put up some really, really strong numbers, and I think the reason is already there to look to him if things aren't going well for Mike Smith. But this is just a drum that I beat, and I apologize to anybody who's you've said this enough on the podcast over the last 14 years. Brian, move on.
Yeah, well, also with Koskinen, maybe he's putting up good numbers because maybe he's better, not rested, playing so much.
For sure.
So Yeah, it's hard to say. Okay, I'll end then my list with, I'll just kind of say like every Calgary Flame. I hinted that before. I'm very concerned about Sutter now being the coach and how that's going to affect these guys. So already, so they scored 4 goals on Saturday versus versus Winnipeg. So that was good. Before that, they only had 4 goals in their previous 4 games. I don't know, just like a lot of these players just aren't doing as well as we expect. Like Elias Lindholm is probably the best on the team right now. He's leading the team in points with 30 points in 36 games. That's a 68 point pace. So maybe his like 95% roster will hold. That's actually pretty high for like someone who I'd be, I don't know, like I wouldn't have expected him to be that high, but I guess he's earned it so far. Matthew Tkachuk's having a down year, like 26 points in 36 games. That's like a 59 point pace. Only like 1 goal and no assist in his last 5 games. Lots of 1 shot and goal games recently. This is a 98% rostered guy. That's basically, like most people 98% or higher, like this for sure things. And Matthew Tkachuk has not been such a sure thing in a lot of leagues. Then you got
John. His ice time is just plummeting under Daryl Sutter.
Yeah. So there you go. And like I could keep naming people like Johnny Gaudreau, like Sutter, like insulted him before the last game. Like, did you see that?
Yeah. He was asked what he's looking for in Gaudreau's 500th game, and didn't he say something like, "I hope it's better than his 499th."
Yeah, I hope he has more energy than in his 499th. Like, okay, harsh.
Oh gosh.
Sean Monahan is having a down year. He's still 65% rostered. Maybe that'll hold. Like 65 is already like dropped pretty far. So he's on a 53 point pace. So I feel like he's someone who I expect to stay the same just because it's already fallen so far. But like Gaudreau and Tkachuk at like 95 plus are guys. Also, by the way, Mark Giordano's at 74%. And yeah, he's back on the top power play and he scored a power play goal yesterday. But aside from that, he's, been pretty quiet most of the year. Noah Hannafin on the other side had a run on the top power play. He's been off it now, but he's only at 5%. So, when I'm just looking at these numbers, deciding how they're going to end at the end of the year, I could see Giordano going down a bit, Hannafin going up a bit. Not saying that Giordano is droppable in a lot of leagues, but overall, Calgary just doesn't seem like a team that's going to score a lot of goals moving forward. Doesn't seem like that's the style Sutter wants to play.
For sure. I'll step in to defend Giordano, which I've been doing all season.
Because he's over 35 and he's not named Mike Smith. So,
well, no, his peripherals have also come back. He wasn't doing much of anything to start the season, and now his blocks are back up. He's back getting top power play billing. His shots are back. Well, back, quote unquote. Like they look good. He's been shooting more, which is why he's got 3 goals in his last 6 games. Interestingly, he has 4 goals, but 0 assists in his last 12 games. So I guess that just goes to show how little anyone else is scoring for the Flames right now. It's a really Calgary. I'm over the Flames. This is my 2 years ago. I drafted Monahan and Gaudreau really high, got burnt so hard, and I think Giordano too. And then last year, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Still ended up with at least 2 of them. This year again, I ended up with Monahan and Giordano again somehow. I drafted Giordano. Monahan I ended up getting via trade, and I hate them. I hate having Calgary Flames on my roster. I am so over it. Calgary is a team that is really rising on my do not draft from list.
Okay, yeah. And by the way, the obvious one here is Rasmus Andersson, 27% rostered.
Oh, yeah.
That's all must be inactive managers. He's pointless in 5. He's a clear, whoever, actually, if you're a commish right now, look in your league, see who the Rasmus Andersson manager is, and then replace that manager because he's not paying attention and you want to probably get someone better.
Can you say because they're not paying attention? Replace that manager because.
And replace that manager because they're not playing. Because they're clearly not paying attention, and you could probably find a more active manager to take over, someone who knows not to hold Rasmus Andersson still at this point. Okay, so Brian, I guess that's it for my list. Is that it for your list? Are we ready to take everyone home?
Yeah, that's it. I'm just looking through the chat. Thanks to everybody who comes live, keepingkarlsson.com/live. Everyone's welcome. You can come check it out. So we just get some questions in the chat through the episode, and I haven't looked a lot. So I'm just taking a peek now. Shams, heart and soul, by the way, of our patron community, Shams is here and said, what's the word on Stalock? So the word on Stalock is 4 days ago, his mask arrived in Edmonton. And the Oilers Twitter account said it was amazing. It includes a cat playing a saxophone, which is pretty amazing. I don't know. I haven't heard anything else about Stalock there. So that's a good point about the Smith-Koskinen discussion. And earlier, Shams also pointed out Klingberg at 88% rostered and what our thoughts are. Elon, I'll give my quick thoughts while you formulate yours. I think that's reasonable. I think Klingberg has been like, he's also been shooting a bunch. He has 5 shots on goal 4 times in his last 7 games. So that's really nice. And he has a bunch of points pretty consistently all season long. So right now he's got 22 points in 31 games for a 58-point pace. To me, that's very much worth being 88% rostered.
Yeah, I guess so. A rare Dallas player that Brian is somewhat into. So there you go. Okay, so thanks so much, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed this show. We would love to hear your thoughts on either if you agree or disagree with any of our picks. And also if you have any players that you think should be higher percent rostered or lower percent rostered or will be moving forward for the rest of the season. If you like the show, let us know. We'd love to hear from you at Keeping Carlson over on Twitter. Brian mentioned we've got our fun Discord community going. If you're not a patron of Keeping Carlson, maybe come hang out for the last month of the season. We could give you some advice going into your fantasy playoffs. So keepingcarlson.com/patron. For the people who are patrons of the podcast, thank you so much. And to the people who are participating in the couple, we've got 2 weeks to go before the fantasy playoffs start. So you have 2 weeks to either get into the playoffs or miss out, and maybe you could still get into the consolation playoffs. If you're in the couple and you feel like your team doesn't have much of a chance this year, we'd still appreciate you play it out, right? And that's to anyone in any fantasy league. If you're listening to this, maybe you're in like some leagues where you're doing well and some leagues where it's not going well. Like be a mensch, be someone who is, a good citizen in their league, and still set your rosters and make sure that like other people don't get a free ride by getting a matchup against an inactive manager. So
right, just to because if you go easier on your opponent in week 10 than you did on your opponent in week 1, not only does that make things easier for your opponent to win in week 10, but if your opponent in week 10 winning affects other people's matchups and fortunes, then that really sucks. So yeah, you don't want the time of year that you play someone to really have a huge impact. I guess there's already injuries, but in terms of managing your fantasy team, like Elon said, be a mensch.
I guess it's like a PSA there.
Yeah.
So now I feel bad about the non-gender neutrality. So is there a female word for mensch, or is mensch gender neutral?
Well, you didn't keep the gender neutrality piece in the show itself, so I don't know if this is for the show or not. The female version of a mensch is a woman.
I didn't do what in the show?
You didn't keep you're not going to keep it in where you said he, and I asked you.
No, I know. I was asking you this off the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my joke is that the gender neutral. Oh no, I was going to say.
I don't want to joke. I'm just asking you.
Mensch. I think mensch is gender neutral.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Oh, okay. A person. I'm reading about it now.
Can a girl be a mensch?
That's a ridiculous question.
Well, I searched for female version of mensch, and that's the first thing that came up. Is people also ask, can a girl be a mensch? I
see no implication that it's maybe we can call it a bench.
Well, anyway, okay. I think we're just done. So okay. So when you say be a good citizen, yeah. So that's our PSA, and we've already reached out to a bunch of couple managers. Not a bunch, like most people are active. We reach out to the ones who aren't. We're going to try our best to make it super tight for the last 2 weeks. So good luck everyone in the couple. Good luck to everyone in all of your leagues, and we'll be with you right to the bitter end to try to give you advice on people to add and drop to maximize your chances of taking home those championships. All right, so Brian, with all of that, let's let everyone go home. Let's cue the outro music, and why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Carlson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons. It was researched. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com and outro music by the famous Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and NBC Fantasy Edge, and Yahoo.
I think it's NBC Sports. Sorry, let me say it again. I think it's NBC Sports Edge as the RotoWire equivalent. I don't think it's called NBC Fantasy Edge.
Okay, I will make sure to get it right next time.
One day we'll figure this out. I still think they should have stuck with RotoWorld. I think it's a good name. But anyway, okay, great job as always, Brian. This was a ton of fun. Looking forward to doing this all again next week. In the meantime, of course, we'll have a couple of short shifts episodes from Ben and Lewis. Oh, we should also mention that the Couple Stat Attack is on hiatus for a little bit. So don't look for the Couple Stat Attack, but definitely check out Dave Betton's Stream Scheme, which comes out every Sunday.
Crap, I forgot to mention. Let me just
jump in right now. I said every Sunday.
Tag on every Sunday. Yeah, Dave went 7 for 10 last week on his streamers. He's 7-2 on the year, which is much better than his cupful tier 1 record, but at least he's shining somewhere. So go ahead and harvest the fruits of Dave's streaming, scheming labor.
So mean.
Oh, sorry. Is that too mean?
Well, he's winning. He won this week against Jeff. It's pretty exciting.
I already teased him about his record, like in a DM.
Okay.
I think he's okay with it.
All right.
You want me to take it out?
No, I don't care.
All right.
On the plus side, Dave beat Jeff Good. This is like now getting to like people are like, okay, you can turn off the podcast if you want, but I'm just gonna say some little tier 1 gossip here. Me, Ben, and Lewis are all fighting for playoff spots, and so is this guy Jeff Good, who's been on the show a long time ago for auction draft expertise. And we really needed Dave to beat Jeff in order to help us all have a chance of getting in. So we were like cheering for Dave all weekend. It looks like Dave won. So I guess his streaming skills won't help him get into the playoffs this year, but have helped him knock out a giant in Jeff, who destroyed me last week. But okay, enough of that. Is outro music playing still? Okay, I'm retroactively telling myself to turn that off. So when you heard that turn off, that's why. Now I'm cueing it just to say, Brian, this was fun, and look forward to doing this all again next week.
Yeah, for sure. And everyone is welcome because fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Okay.
Kyle in the chat wants us to discuss Sagan and his return.
He's not even like the thing with Sagan.
No one's even talking about it, right? Like he's not even close.
He started skating, and then the coach said that he's like still a ways away. So he'll probably be back in like 2-3 weeks. And like, I don't know really what to say. Like, I think there's like 2 different ways this can go, right? Like he could be like he was in the playoffs last year, which is completely ineffective, but hopefully that's because he was injured. I think it was a wrist injury, right? And so hopefully that's fully healed. Clearly he's taken his time. So you'd imagine he'll come back fully healed and he'll be back to the Sagan of old, but it's not a guarantee because we've seen him struggle recently. And I don't know, it's like easy to just say, yeah, it's all because of the injury, but it could also be because he's fallen off a bit. And Brian, I know how you hate Dallas. And so you assume that he's going to probably got to give him the Dallas tax right there.
The Dallas tax. Yeah. The New York Islanders tax has been relocated to the Stars tax. Hey, I was optimistic about Gurianov and Robertson tonight.
Yeah. You didn't mention Pavelski at all. I was surprised.
You mentioned, what did I
So what do you
say?
think at this point? Pavelski's, it's cool. I'm happy for him. It must have been such a downer for him to have that down.
Did I ever say I wasn't happy for Joe Pavelski?
No, I'm not being antagonistic.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm happy for Joe Pavelski.
Still unsustainable.
Okay. What do you think he's good at? What pace would you expect moving forward?
So right now he is legitimately on a point per game pace. 60?
Oh wow. So he's gonna have a huge fall.
I mean,
I've got a time bomb on their fantasy rosters right now if they're still holding Joe Pavelski.
I mean, honestly, okay. Let me just take a look. Yeah, well, I said on the last show, it's all been on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just seeing that is still the case. Like 17 power play points in 32 games is insane. And he's only had 3 in his last 12, but his even strength scoring has picked up. I don't know, man. Yeah. I'm not, I'm not high on him, but good for Joe. Way to go.
Yeah.
Way to go, little Joe. You know, remember it was Big Joe and Little Joe?
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Thornton and Pavelski.
Oh, and Patty's mentioning a very easy joke that we missed. Dallas taxes.
Oh, they don't have taxes there? Is that it?
No, they're in, like, you reverse the Texas
vowels.
Instead
of taxes. Oh, okay. Good one.
Easier visual.
Brian
time.
Loves that kind of thing. By the way, Brian, if you're interested, I'm currently up by 4 points in my matchup with 1 period to go. And I have DeBrincat, Connor Murphy, and Kirby Doc, and Ben has Ekholm. But the way this week has gone, I'm confident Ben will win. Ekholm's going to score a goal in the last minute. And
I look forward to watching along with you.
I can't believe that. It's ridiculous. I just want the season to end, you know? Like, then I'd be in the playoffs now. By default, I'll stay in tier 1. So nervous.
Can I, going back to the pun talk? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I just, my kid made a pun.
Let's hear it.
I was really proud.
Like, on purpose or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're like that's 2 2.25. It's not their
amazing.
First either. Yeah.
That's very rare.
But like I mentioned how she'd eaten a bagel like for like snack and then like lunch and then snack after her nap. So I was like, yeah, she had bagel here, and bagel here. And she just looked at me and was like, made it out of clay. I'm like, that's really funny. Because it's like a play on dreidel, made it out of clay.
Oh,
Bagel.
That's cute.
Isn't that? I think that's brilliant.
I guess for brilliance, we'd have to determine. Yeah, like, was it? Yeah, that's great. She sounds
Do you
amazing.
think it was an accident?
Oh, well, that's the thing. Like, it could be that she, like, I guess, like, theoretically, she could have, like, made, like, I don't know. It sounds really good. I think she's a very smart kid.
I just don't see how that would happen accidentally.
Bagel. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and then she sang it out loud.
I love it.
Sang the full song.
I wish I could meet her. I mean, I have, but I'd like to meet her again. She's so different right now.
I'm sure you do all kinds of great things that you would think are so dumb and simple, but that would make her laugh so much.
Oh, yeah. That was from last week's recording.
Yeah. What's your latest great uncle trick?
Oh, it's so stupid. Well, the thing is, like, the easiest laugh is to do a Zoom call and then just put, like, the filters, like the effects. Yeah. So anyway, so Dean and I were both on it, and I put the dog face, but like it only goes on one of us, right? But what you can do is like you could steal it. If I put my face in front of Dina's face, then it like grabs the dog and then takes it back onto mine. So we were sort of just like doing a little comedy bit of stealing the dog back and forth from each other, and she loved it. Yeah, it was great.
I bet you're a great uncle.
Well, better before COVID, right? Now we don't see each other that much. We have to resort to Zoom.
I mean, there's a low ceiling on how great an uncle you could be, but I think that you're still finding ways over Zoom is, speaks to your great uncledom, unclehood, uncliness.
I would love to be even half as good an uncle as you are a father.
You have
teacher,
no idea what kind of
podcast host.
I've never fathered or taught you.
Yeah, but I could get a sense that you know what you're doing. Okay, this is awkward now. This is weird. We should hang out sometime off live shows to have these talks.
Yeah, but Zoom hangouts are just like so hard. It's just annoying. Like so sad to even start it. It's just like, well, here we are again.
Hey everyone, what you drinking? Cheers.
Oh, I should turn the light on. Sorry.
What's the latest COVID restrictions in Ottawa? Here we've got code brown. What are you guys?
Yeah, it's hard. You're doing great.
Thanks, everybody. Okay,
everyone's doing great. I hope
we're all doing our best.
Yeah.
All right, gotta edit this together, get it out.
The Marx Brothers. We should watch the Marx Brothers. Marx Brothers watch party.
I've never seen any Marx Brothers.
Oh, you might not like it. You might think it's just dumb.
What do? They like? Is it like Three Stooges?
Yeah. But maybe like a step above, like Three Stooges, I think is more, I haven't watched either in a long time. So Patty can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Three Stooges, there's more like physical comedy, and Marx Brothers, it's more like spoken.
Okay, so that sounds better already.
Yeah, it's not just people get like slapped in the face.
Yeah. I like that as a kid, but I've grown to not really love Three Stooges so much.
Yeah. Well, maybe check out the Marx Brothers.
Okay, I will.
You've got the time.
Maybe you could send me a link to a good YouTube video.
Well, Patty's suggesting duck soup, and I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I'll watch it tonight after I'm done putting this podcast together. So I'll get on that.
Which should be good. There weren't a lot of edits.
Hey, it's a pretty decent long list of edits. So some of them are my fault for sure.
I wonder how many are me. I felt like I did really well tonight.
You crushed it. You did a great show.
Yes.
Okay.
I live for that.
Thanks everyone for watching. I didn't do my plea for YouTube for people to also download the episode.
Start over.
Our download numbers are going to plummet. That's okay. Who cares at the end of the day? We both have day jobs. This is just for fun.
Well, yeah.
I'd like to have I'd love to be like super famous, right? And like have like super high download numbers. But I almost feel like at this point we've really just settled in. We've got our crew and we've got our listeners that we love. And I think we're like Survivor, season in, season out, our ratings are just going to stay, I don't know, plateau. Or maybe not. Maybe we still have a trick up our sleeves to get higher. I guess we could ask Blue Wire to help us. We should sign up for a Blue Wire hustle.
We should, yeah. Hey guys, maybe that's really funny.
We'll just pay them $15 a month for them to help us out.
Yeah. Doc is on a line to start the third with Kubalik and Hegel, not the philosopher.
Man. Just get a point. That's all I want. Or just like Ekholm not get a point.
Do you know Hegel's first name?
Brandon.
Hegel.
Oh, another one.
How did you know he's Brandon?
I watch hockey. I don't know. I pay attention. He got a
Brandon
power play
Hegel.
goal like
Oh,
a
he's
couple games
actually
ago.
like decent production for a nobody.
He's not a nobody. He's a rookie.
Yeah, but like he's a nobody.
Okay. I mean, I guess
What's
it depends.
the story? Who is this guy?
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, let's see what's been going on with the Nashville Predators Twitter. Well, I guess it's it, right? Unless I respond to them, it's going to be over. And I don't plan to respond to them.
Hegel has, let's see. Wow, 9 points in his last 14 games. 33 shots.
Okay.
Who is he?
He's a rookie. What do you want to say? What do you want the answer to? Do you want me to tell you what?
Sixth round pick.
Yeah, this is what Chicago does. They find all these random people that no one had heard of.
Yeah, but usually they're from like overseas or something. He's from Saskatoon.
Oh.
But he's small.
Oh, people hate this. That's why he fell. Like Alexander Pashin. Do you know him?
Yeah.
He's going to be good one day.
The off-brand Yashin.
I'll just be so excited for him to be good. I also picked up another person recently that Victor dropped in my Dynasty League. Those are the people I'm most excited about that I hope they'll be good. I got Taro Hirose. So I'm hoping in a couple years, Hirose and Passion will be doing awesome for my team.
You can name your team Passion Pit.
Okay. I remember that band. All right, we gotta go. This is not even entertaining for anyone. This is like even like a lame conversation if it was just the two of us. We'd be like, all right, well, I gotta go. Bye, everybody.
Okay.